2, and 1. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Maria Joeco. I'm broadcasting from you live from Alberta, Canada. I'm one of the hosts here at the Empower event. I'm an equity and inclusion strategist helping leaders build healthy and inclusive workplaces. I'm also the founder of Inclusion Journey and author of Unhide Yourself. I'm very happy and honored to be here with a list of diverse global speakers today and tomorrow. So right now we are hosting this event, Empower Her, as a celebration of International Women's Day. It's also a collective strive towards breaking barriers and inspiring change. And so from here, I'll pass on the stage to Dr. Hala El-Menyawi. She is one of the co-hosts and she's a senior board member of the London Intercultural Center. Dr. Hala, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, for taking this job as a host. Maria is the author of Unhide Yourself, one of the best-selling books. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Empower Her 24, a virtual conference dedicated to celebrating the remarkable achievements of women around the world. International Women's Day is not just a day to commemorate the achievements of women. It's rather a call for action. So, today, we are going to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of women in every sphere of life, from politics and business to science and arts. Today, we are privileged to be part of a global movement that is committed to breaking down barriers and creating a world where every woman and girl can thrive. It's a movement fueled by courage, resilience, and unwavering determination. It is a movement that recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of every individual, regardless of their gender. At Empower Her 2024 virtual conference, we are committed to amplifying the voices of women from all walks of life. We believe that by lifting each other and standing together in solidarity, we can create a more just and equitable world for future generations. Throughout the course of this conference, we will hear from, amazing women who are leading the change in their communities and beyond. We will learn from their experiences, draw inspiration from their stories, and chart a course towards a more inclusive and equitable future. As we commemorate International Women's Day, let us recommit ourselves to the principles of equality, justice, and human rights. Let's work tirelessly to build a world where every woman and girl can live free from fear and oppression, and where their voices are heard and valued. Now, give me the chance to extend my appreciation and gratitude to all the amazing people who cooperated and came together to make Empower Her virtual conference accessible to everyone. Starting from Maria Natalie, who first initiated the idea, and then to the amazing team at London Intercultural Center, starting from Hadi, Rinjigji, Nicole, Farid, and all the other board members who supported us in this event. And then moving to the amazing selected group of global speakers who are today taking the time out of their precious career to share their stories of success with all women around the world. Now, let us welcome the opening speech of Dr. Engineer Abdullah Assihati. He is a man who is well known for his work for humanity. So, Back to Maria. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to my talk. And from now on, Maria will be the host. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you, Dr. Hala. And so before I put on the video of Dr. Engineer Al Sayhati, I just want to make sure that our attendees are aware that there's a Q&A button, and you can freely ask your questions. We will monitor and try to answer any of the questions that you may have for the speakers. And so you can see that on the right side of your screen, there's a Q&A button and a chat button as well. Thank you. So now I'll be playing the video, introduction video of Dr. Engineer Al Sayhati.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to the world, everyone. Thank you all for being here today, united under the banner of the London Intercultural Centre, as we join hands to celebrate the extraordinary essence of International Women's Day. We acknowledge the pivotal role that women play in shaping the destiny of our shared planet. Their influence echoes through the corridors of history, from the indomitable spirit of trailblazers to the nurturing embrace of mothers, sisters, and friends. Women have been the architects of our collective journey. The first two countries to celebrate Women's Day were Austria, Denmark, and Switzerland. Then in 1975, the International Women's Day was officially recognized by the United Nations. This is the largest global event to be celebrated by all cultures, celebrating women's achievements. This event serves as a powerful reminder of all the achievements women have made through resilience, determination, and intellect, and we want to inspire future generations of women together at London Intercultural Centre. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this celebration, and I hope you enjoy the event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Engineer Al Sayhati. Dr. Engineer Al Sayhati is the Honorary President of London Intercultural Centre. For our attendees as well, if you can, let us know from the chat where you are broadcasting from, where you're located, that'll be great. That will help us understand your time zone as well. And so with that, we'd like to proceed with our next host and speaker. So I'd like to introduce one of our senior board member of the London Intercultural Centre, Indira Bunick. Indira is, again, one of the senior board of directors of London Intercultural Centre. She's an internationally recognized and accomplished thought leader with over 3 decades of impactful leadership in governance, diplomacy, law enforcement, corporate world, industry, non-for-profit sector, and academia. She's a multiple member of different boards of directors, fashionable leadership empowerment coach, CEO and founder of Empower You, Ignite Your Leadership Journey, and a book author of Rise Above and Empower Yourself. Welcome, Indira.
Thank you, Maria. That's a great and warm welcome. I'm overwhelmed, and at this point of time, I would like to let us give a warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Professor Dr. Ingrid Vassiliou-Feltes. She's a globally recognized deep touch advocate, futurist, and exponentialist, with an extensive leadership track record and experience in academia. the corporate world and nonprofit sector. With a passion for cyber ethics, Professor Dr. Vasilio Feltes is a dedicated digital strategist and advisor to boards or C-suite. Please, word is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I would like to extend my gratitude for all the organizers for putting together such an amazing agenda and inviting so many brilliant women to contribute today their precious stories that we hope inspire many other women this year and in future generations. My keynote today will be centered on diplomacy. Please allow me to share a presentation. So I would like to just briefly share why I chose this topic. It reflects my commitment this year to enhance the presence of women in deep tech diplomacy. I do believe we have an important opportunity this year due to the increased adoption of deep tech worldwide to promote women in this important field. I also do believe that we are at the right moment in time where we can encourage also little girls that are growing up currently to aspire to a career in deep tech diplomacy. My focus will be on women empowering change for UN SDGs and enhancing multicultural collaboration through their work in deep tech diplomacy. So let's proceed. Please allow me first to share briefly the keynote overview. I will highlight the global landscape we're witnessing, such as the deep tech evolution that's been happening over the last few years and is expected to continue. Then I will underscore some of the very specific role that women can have in accelerating the UN SDG agenda, as well as our role in multicultural collaboration. I will conclude with highlighting, of course, the many challenges we need to overcome to achieve these goals, and share a few of my thoughts about future directions and developments that we can embark on together. When we examine the global landscape, I would like to call your attention to three major levers. One, the massive scientific advancements we have witnessed over the last few years are akin to the Medici era that we witnessed many hundreds of years ago. Additionally, the deep tech developments and the rapid adoption of deep tech over the last 2 years are also offering a unique opportunity and a massive shift in the global business ecosystem that lends itself to a novel, innovative diplomacy concept as well. And last but not least, I would like to also remember that we are witnessing severe changes, I would say tectonic changes in population demographics. Not only do we have women in certain population demographic segments that are more than half of the world's population, but also we're witnessing tremendous talent gap, talent migration. And according to several reports that are published by the OECD and the World Bank, it is projected by 2030 that we will have more than a quarter of the workforce at the Generation Z and Generation Alpha level, which means these generations are digitally native. They work, entertain themselves, and educate themselves in immersive realities. So therefore, this whole global business and societal landscape is shifting and shaping. And I think this is why we have an opportunity now to encourage women to get involved early. I referenced the deep tech evolution and the impact it has on the global business ecosystem as well as society. And I would like to highlight a few. Of course, there are numerous other emerging technologies that are part of the deep tech portfolio. But I would like to mention a few because they have really changed the paradigm due to the massive investments we're seeing and the rapid adoption. Not only has AI been at the forefront this past year, but also we're seeing how digital twin technologies, blockchain, very soon quantum computing, are also powering innovative platforms that are accelerating UN SDGs and are also contributing to the 2050 agenda. Additionally, I would like to inform you that although quantum computing used to be on the horizon for the next 10 years as being adopted in the business ecosystem, now it's projected to have a much earlier adoption, and we see a lot of movement to the point that the United Nations has signaled that 2025 will be the year of quantum computing. So the same way we had the year of AI last year, it's projected that quantum will be the main technology in 2025. I would also like to mention briefly that multi-cloud computing, 5G, and satellite internet also are essential for women to get involved in early in terms of education, business, entrepreneurship, investments, because they will power a deep tech architecture that will likely be here for the next decade or more. So what is the role of women in deep tech diplomacy? Well, there are several important elements to consider. The first, like with everything we're doing, having strong leadership is essential. And I would like to introduce the concept that I first mentioned last year on the global stage of multidextrous leadership. And I would like to encourage women to embark on that type of leadership that involves not only skills professionally, but also digital skills, cybersecurity skills, ethics skills, versatility in financial instruments to understand exactly how to power such initiatives, and of course, education and culture change, which are very important if we want to achieve a sustainable long-term model. So how can women contribute in advancing UN SDGs if they're involved in deep tech? Well, all the data shows that deep tech can actually influence every single UN SDG. And I shared a few examples. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I would like to emphasize that we have deep tech deployments that are currently active, and they show how deep tech can actually improve every single indicator under every single SDG. And they're beautiful examples worldwide where we can achieve tremendous results quite quickly with the power of deep tech, when it is, of course, adopted responsibly, like I mentioned, with all the ethical guardrails. In addition to the first three SDGs, of course, as you can imagine, deep tech has also powered a lot of education transformation and has made huge strides in trying to bridge the gender divide. As you can see, we have also tremendous opportunity for deep tech to allow women to be involved in all other SDGs, such as clean water, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, as well as reducing inequalities. I would also like to mention that through deep tech, we can actually lower consumption. And there is a lot of misconception out there. For instance, when people ask me all the time about blockchain, that used to be the case that it consumed a lot of energy, but now we have blockchains that are actually net zero. And I'm looking forward to share with you that the founder and CEO is actually a woman, which is awesome. Of course, we can all be involved in climate action. There are numerous opportunities that have been shown how deep tech can accelerate our quest to achieve the net zero ecosystem. Life below water, life on land are also offering women scientists tremendous opportunities to become involved. My favorite three SDGs, though, that I would like to use a moment to hone in on are sustainable cities. And the reason for that is I'm involved and I'm the co-founder of the World Smart City Economic Development Commission. And I have to tell you how many wonderful women are worldwide that are contributing to smart city design, smart city deployment, and smart city monitoring. I also have the privilege to collaborate and be on the board of Hera Media that's building Hera Light, the city for women. And I'm encouraging all of you to get involved. It's an amazing project that will hopefully create what we all aspire to, a smart, sustainable, equitable city where women and girls are priority. Additionally, SDG 16, of course, highlights why we want to get involved in diplomacy and leverage all the not only educational and knowledge power that we have, but also try to create an ecosystem that allows us to accelerate all our efforts. Right now, we have a lot of silos, and it is my professional opinion and experience that by having a diplomatic effort, we can actually bring all those independent efforts together. And that also leads to the SDG 17. Like we illustrate today, each one of us alone does amazing things, but together we can accomplish so much more. So SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, always reminds us that we have to find strong strategic partners, have alliances that can augment and amplify our efforts, and that will allow us to have the best outcomes. So now that we touched on how women in deep tech can improve all SDGs, I would like to also emphasize what we can do for multicultural collaboration. And here, you might not always hear about some of these elements, but I would like to bring them up if possible. We all are very familiar with coaching, advocacy, strategic partnerships, building sustainable ecosystems. But in my experience, there are two other factors that can really change the dynamics when you try to have women be part of a global diplomatic network: power dynamics and skills in mediation and arbitration. And I think we are not doing enough worldwide. So we are always focusing on coaching and mentorship, but I do believe that if we want to change the paradigm and break some of those barriers, we must also start to train women early on in power dynamics, mediation, and arbitration. That's how we can achieve true multicultural collaboration and bridge some of those divides that we're still experiencing. I've referenced the challenges that we must overcome, and please allow me to just share a few of them. We're all always recognizing that legal and regulatory guidelines are major barriers in several parts of the world. Of course, we still have religious and cultural barriers as well that we must together help overcome. And then we still have many areas in the world where we're experiencing a significant digital divide as well as an investment divide. And I've taken on this last challenge with our co-founder, Dr. Jane Thomason. We just launched the Global Women Deep Tech Investor Network, because as we all know, we don't have enough women investors. We certainly don't have enough women deep tech investors, and we have even less women in some of those deep tech elements that I showed you, such as quantum and a few others that are coming down the pipeline, such as human brain interfaces or satellite internet. So I will conclude with a few of my own thoughts about future directions for development, and I encourage all of you to participate. I do believe that our transition to the next generation of the World Wide Web, called Web 3, as well as the opportunities we see in the metaverse, such as described by Accenture, or the opportunities of a growing industrial omniverse, a coin termed by NVIDIA, as well as the power of women to develop smart, sustainable, equitable cities of the future, should not be underestimated. Now is the time to be involved. Once these are all established, it's much harder to penetrate that type of ecosystem. So I encourage all of you. I'm also part of the Women of the Future cohort 1, and I can share with you that the amazing work that's happening in that group can really amplify efforts on the UN SDG front. As I mentioned, I work with amazing women around the world that are contributing to smart cities. And I encourage all of you to become involved in our deep tech diplomacy ecosystem. I hope that some of the elements I mentioned today were inspiring to our audience. And once again, I'm very grateful for being invited today. I would like to finish the keynote with a call to action to embrace exponential thinking, design and systems thinking, an abundance mindset. We can do a lot of good together. We want to educate the future women in deep tech diplomats, the girls that are currently going to school, and of course, leverage the butterfly effect. I also would like to invite all of you to spark a global women in diplomacy Medici effect together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Ingrid. It's a very enlightening, very inspiring talk that you've shared with us, the works that you've been doing, how you're breaking barriers for women. And Dr. Hala, what do you think?
Well, I really enjoyed, the presentation, and I think it will be for others also for future to contemplate on the concepts that Dr. Ingrid has mentioned. You know, and I think 15 minutes won't be enough just to cover all of this. So thank you so much for summarizing such important concepts in only 15 minutes. Thank you so much. We are really very honored to have you on this platform.
Thank you for
Yes,
inviting.
I totally agree, Dr. Hala. Indira, would you like to say something? You just turned on your video. Go ahead, please.
No, thank you very much. It is really an honor to have such a esteemed guest as Professor Dr. Ingrid is, and making and raising awareness about challenges, but also huge opportunities that we have, empowering us and empowering women. Thank you so much for being today with us, Dr. Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you, Indira. And so I'd also again like to welcome everyone joining us today globally. We have here from the chat people from England, our joiners, participants from England, South Africa. Welcome everyone. You know, again, continue letting us know where you are coming from, where you are viewing from, and we'd be happy to have you in this event. We're so happy to have you in this event. And so moving on, we'd like to move towards our other speakers right now. So the next speakers, next roster of speakers will be talking about their personal narratives of triumph, stories of resilience and growth. So again, I'm very eager to hear about your stories. I'd like to introduce, I'm very quite honored to introduce the first speaker to share her story. Her name is Malin Neal. Malin has worked in the Middle East for the past 15 years. She's a keen marketer with a passion for content. She has worked with some of the largest financial institutions and corporates in the United Arab Emirates and will share her journey and the challenges that she faced along the way. So welcome, Malin. You're still muted.
Couldn't go without a little technical mishap, surely. Thank you very, very much for that introduction. And I am incredibly honored to be here. And thank you everyone for attending and the wonderful organizer. It's been a support network in the last few weeks that has been unbelievable. Now, as much as I've been excited about this, and this is about female empowerment and the absolute, we have speakers from all over the world that's done so many amazing things, and yet here I am and I'm shaking a little bit. So when I first was asked if I wanted to speak at this amazing event, so rather than to think that it's an honor, what an amazing thing to do, my inner demon got hold of me and I started asking myself, well, surely they must mean someone else. There must be someone in a higher position with a better degree, better position. Maybe there's someone named Malin that has climbed a mountain or done something truly extraordinary. And obviously, I would love to climb a mountain. I haven't done that yet. And in a moment of weakness, I emailed Dr. Hala and I said, are you sure you want me to speak at this event? I'm such a normal person. And I think the reply I got from her was just hitting the nail on its head when she said, every story is worth being told. We all, as women, we naturally go through so many hurdles in our professional and personal career that we need to normalize and hear each other's stories and to gain access to inspiration and experience from each other. So that was when the penny dropped, and we all have that story. It could be interesting or inspiring, but we all have a story worth being told. So mine is pretty ordinary in compared to some of our speakers today. But I'm a mother, I'm a wife, a friend, a daughter, and I'm starting to sound like Alanis Morissette here, I think. But I have a job that I love, which is a reasonably good position. But it hasn't always been like that. So I'm going to take you through just my journey on how I went from being formed in or being taught to take a certain route in my life, and that I think a lot of us might feel familiarity with, and how I ended up in a position where I actually do something that I love. So this is me growing up. I was persuaded that there's only a number of options that you can take from a career perspective. If you want success, you have avenue 1, 2, or 3, and those avenues are measured. Your success is only measured by the paycheck. That was more or less the advice I had growing up. And I think that, again, I think that's a situation that a lot of men and women in the world can familiarize themselves with. So I'm going to start with the first real change in my career, and it started like a lot of Hallmark movies with a bad holiday romance that turned in like a springboard in my career. So I'm going back just a couple of years, or 20 of them. So I was on holiday with my mom and dad, fell madly in love, and one thing led to another, and I moved to little Sweden to even smaller little Wales. With 2 slightly disappointed parents who expected me to start working for the family business. At that point, I was relatively young and my ears didn't work as well as they do now. So I ditched their advice and I ended up staying there for 2 years until I realized that this is not the life that I was meant to lead. I needed something else, but still drilled into a conformity of choosing a career path that someone else has wanted for me. I started taking some courses in financial planning. A couple of months later, I got this call from a lovely lady who said that there's an opportunity in Abu Dhabi that could be interesting. Would you be interested to have an interview? And I was in Wales, not very well traveled at the time, and the neighboring city was called Abertawe, which was 30 kilometers to the west. After a couple of rounds of interviews and a little bit of gusto, I ended up in Abu Dhabi instead. So this lovely lady managed to convince me back then that this exotic desert paradise was for me. And it certainly was, and it still is. So I took a big leap and I did the first real change in my life. So at the age of 26, I packed my bags and I kissed my boyfriend for one last time and off I went. So I think and I ended up in Abu Dhabi in a job alone, and I had made that choice on my own, and I was sure that I was going to make it. Financially, it didn't quite make sense because I was in a job that was commission based. That was okay at the time, but I did really bad. It was not at all because I had chosen a career path that I had no interest in, and with no interest, it's very, very hard to move forward. So for months, I lived off potatoes and tinned tuna because I was convinced that I was going to make it work. During this time, I also met my now husband, so I was even more convinced that this was a place that I was going to stay with. Now, it was a difficult time in the sense of that it was hard to get by. I was in a job that I didn't like, but in a place that I really liked. So money was running out and I started looking for another job. So in the beginning, when I still had a few bucks left, I decided that I'm going to give it 6 months. And if I can't make it, I'm going to have to go back, tail between my legs, and live in my mom and dad's basement, which didn't seem particularly pleasant at the time. The 6 months mark was fast approaching, and I didn't really do anything for the first couple of months. But then, as soon as I started realizing that I'm on my way out here, I went into turbo mode. So I decided that I need to do a change here. I need to find a solution to get me to stay in this place that I love and now call home. So I went into a turbo mode. I called everyone I knew. I knocked on doors. I went to every networking event that was free. And I sent my CV out right, left, and center. I took CV courses on how to correctly project myself in the market. And one day it worked. My way of creating change was only really spiraled by the fact that I needed to. I had no choice. So when the choice was there was no change in my behavior. But as soon as the pressure arose, I propelled the change. So I should really clarify here that this is not advice. I do not think that anyone should put yourself in a financial ruin to achieve a desired outcome. I would rather want to say that you should put yourself in a position where desperation is not the catalyst for change. So if you want to change, just calculate the risk and grab it. Don't wait till the very last minute. It was not a good experience, but an experience nonetheless. Either way, I'm in this new job and I'm doing fine. So I'm jumping a few years. There's many years I can jump to here. So I'm going to jump a few years further down the line. So I've been in Abu Dhabi for a while now, and I realized that I didn't like my job. It required tons of research in an area of expertise that I wasn't particularly interested in, which is most likely would have left me stagnated, and I would have comfortably stayed, but not necessarily excelled. So, and also I started speaking to friends who loved their job, explaining to me that they never had Monday blues and they would look forward to tomorrow. They couldn't wait for the next exciting project to start. And there I was, and I was wishing Sunday to Thursday, which was my working week at the time. I wished it away. I was counting minutes, and just so I can spend time with my friends and family during the weekend. So the mere thought that I would have to do that for another 40 odd years absolutely terrified me. So I realized the change was needed again. But this time I thought, well, I have 10 years experience and a reasonable amount of knowledge here. I can't just throw that out of the window. Surely you can, of course, but I felt surely there's element of my job that I do like. So what do I like about my job? And it came down to me that it was people and communication. So as soon as I realized that, I also realized that I need to change. So that was my thing. And I managed to convince, I took a couple of courses. I re-educated myself again. And I managed to convince an employer by contacts and networking that I was better at communicating the product than I was advising on it. And so a little U-turn later, I was in a starting position again. So I went back about 8 years in my career, but I was happy. So I took a pay cut, but happiness 100% made up for that. And we are really so lucky that learning and development has become readily available for the majority of us. So I decided to change all my core competences. Not all of them, sorry, many of them. I took the courses that were offered and I added a few on the side, and I was doing great mentally and I loved my job. But what I also wanted to ask, and I know we have a speaker discussing this a little bit more in detail later, which is such a fantastic topic. I was able to get a mentor, and that really shifted things from A to Z for me. There's so much we can learn from each other and from inspiring leaders that cannot be taught from a book. And that really changed my whole perception and my drive to move forward in my career. This is a person I'm still in contact with now. She has retired and she's enjoying life, but she still very much enjoys once in a while giving me a little nudge in the right direction. So this was it, and now life was good. A couple of interruptions, welcome change with 2 children, which was fantastic, and of course it had somewhat of an impact on my productivity, but not my drive at all. Not productivity, I should say. I should say my impact in working hours. And I was really happy and I was thriving. I had wonderful colleagues. I loved my job and a life outside working hours. And then, as it happens, inevitably, there was a change in leadership. So it's exciting and unknown. And like most of us, I've had the pleasure of working with both inspirational men and women that have shared their knowledge and taught me things that my degree simply couldn't. But then on that flip side, on a few occasions, I worked with leaders that has been quite the opposite, that has not supported growth and that has perhaps not had kindness as a first step. There is constructive criticism and then is corporate bullying. And I know the difference. I'm just going to talk very briefly about how my experience within that. So I worked with this guy. He was my superior. We were on separate teams, but our roads crossed very much. I worked in Abu Dhabi. He was in a different emirate. And we worked on regular projects. We worked together for some time. It became very apparent that he wasn't too impressed with me or my work, which is fine. It started with the occasional rude email, a snidey comment, and not being invited to lunches or team outings, and etc. Right? And I could deal with that. That wasn't the hard point. But at one point we were at an event, and we were still at the event, and I was put in a room with him together with my peer. And how they described to me, like not only on a professional level, but on a personal level, why they didn't like me. So it was everything from the way I wrote emails, the way I dressed, my ideas were idiotic. I think he used that lovely phrase, and how my voice was annoying. So it went on, and at one point my wall just broke. So I asked if we can put a line in the sand and move on from here, and I will address their concerns. I probably couldn't change my voice, but certainly from on the professional aspect of my work duties. And then I was criticized for being weak because I had tears in my eyes, and that were certainly not a surprise to them, as this was another reason why they didn't like them. I was just too weak to be in the pool club. And it's funny how I remember this. So I've worked for about 20 years, and I've enjoyed positive and constructive feedback from a lot of my colleagues. But the first time I got hit by workforce bullying, I took the feedback so much more to heart. I started doubting myself. I felt that they probably had a point in what they were saying. So I started retracting work. I didn't attend any of the social gatherings. I didn't speak up in meetings. And I was just there, did my job, and prayed that the time would go as quick as possible so I can go home to my family. So this was simply not an attainable situation. So I went to HR, as we're told to do. And I was told then that I probably misunderstood it, and this person probably had a bad day, and I probably had a sensitive day. So no change was coming internally. So it took quite a while for me to get back from that. But I realized the change then had to come from me. So first off was, of course, changing the way I look at myself. So I had to change the perception of myself at work. I had to get thicker skin. So the wall had to be stronger, so I could receive setback and punches without inflicting on my personal life. Because of course this took a turn on my personal life as such. So the best way to do that, and this is where my mentor guided me through this actually, and she said, you need to get yourself in a position where you're invaluable. You need to get more knowledge. So we all know that knowledge is power, but if you have the opportunity that I had at the time to work in other departments, because I asked to switch department because of this, which was just by luck really, but then we put that in a program. So if you have an opportunity to work in someone else's shoes, so to speak, take it. There is so much to learn from seeing seeing different aspects of a business, and to understand what goes into the work that different departments do. So, and it gives you really a 360 experience in a corporate environment. And the more valuable you become, of course, the more you feel good about yourself and you feel like you can excel in work, right? So I spent some time in different departments, and then I took some courses, not only professional. I listened to a lot of podcasts and things anyway, but this had to do with me. So I did anything from design programs to diving certificates and social media certification, and slowly but surely, with almost like brick per brick, I started feeling better and I performed again. So I ended up staying in that company. The people who I worked with at the time, who I didn't get on with, so to speak, ended up leaving. And I got awarded Future Female Leaders in that organization in the end. So it was perseverance and also to take a good look at myself and see what can I potentially do to improve the situation, since I'm not getting help from outside. Most companies, in particular large corporate, would have a very diligent way of dealing with this. That was not the case at the time. So it's so easy to stay mid-career and saying, "Yeah, I got my degree, I've done this job for 10 years, and I know the business inside out." But that, what I'm trying to, in a roundabout way, say is ongoing personal development, both for professional and personally, and to be updated throughout your career is so important. So since then, I'm aiming to do one, and it's just one qualification a year. So a couple of years ago, it was scuba diving. Last year, Islamic finance, which it was a very interesting course that I don't really use it in work, but it's very good knowledge per se. Yeah, and I think that change has really changed my outlook in hard times. So tough feedback, or when life takes a U-turn, it's really hard to pick yourself up and get going. But if you feel that you are fulfilled professionally or emotionally or personally with knowledge and strength, those options with knowledge are limitless. So to leave you with one thing today, or maybe two, it's to take a chance once in a while, calculate it so it doesn't put you in ruins. And every positive change that I've had in my career, I can think I very clearly can bring that back to upskilling. Build yourself up, so when criticism comes, it's a little bit of water like on a goose, and that you know that you're valuable in an organization and that you know you. So I will leave you lovely lot like that, and I will wish you to have a lovely future event and to listen to all these wonderful speakers that we've got coming up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malin, for your story, for sharing your story. And so now I'd like to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Nancy Heslin. Nancy, just to give you her background, she is a Monaco media personality and podcaster. She founded Good News Monaco and Carol Tree Publishing. Did I say it right? To share inspiring stories about women. So to talk about her title, the title of her talk is, "Does your version of the story have to be right?" Let's all welcome Nancy Heslin.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
perfectly. Thank you.
Malin, thank you very much for starting this conversation. And the word that really struck me in your very inspiring speech there was the word ongoing. And I think that when we look at anything in our lives, anything that we're all talking about today collectively, we can set goals, we can look down the road, but it's an ongoing process. And we're so lucky to all be here together to learn that and to have the confidence in ourselves that every small step is taking us in the right direction. So thank you for that. I'd like to share a little bit of a story with you. Last summer, I was moderating a masterclass, and I'm going to set the scenario for you, and maybe you've been in a situation like this. The the guest speaker is a very well-known worldwide personality, big personality, male, and he is in the world of clean mobility. And the group of the masterclass was about 20 millennials, very well-established people. They were entrepreneurs, scientists, doctors, filmmakers, storytellers, and it was really a very intimate setting. The tone of the 60-minute class started off very, let's say, exceptionally when I asked the speaker about his passion for the environment and how that led him into the sector of clean mobility. And his reply was very direct, saying it wasn't a passion, I saw a way to make money. And I looked at the faces of the millennials and they sort of kind of went a little bit beet red, like, how is that possible? It's all about passion. And I kind of sensed from that first question that it was going to be a somewhat difficult class to moderate. And I will tell you why that happened. The speaker is fascinating. He is engaging, obviously, but he's incredibly intelligent, incredibly contacted. So around the world, he had common ground to share some opportunities of networking with this group of people. But unfortunately, the group stuck on one thing that he said, and they kept circling back to that in that 60 minutes. And what happened was he was talking about emissions and carbon emissions, and he was talking about private aviation being a small sector of emissions. And if we all stop flying private jets today, it's not going to make an immediate impact right now, right this second, to meet some of those goals that we need in the near future. Now, he's talking to a room of scientists and environmental entrepreneurs, and they were outraged, and they kept going back to this point with him because they had science, because they had facts, they had everything behind them that they were right, and he wasn't listening to them. And you could see in their faces that they're physically reacting to him because he wouldn't validate their truth. He wouldn't say, you're right. He didn't say that they were wrong, but he had other points that he wanted to talk about. It was clear he was not going to budge on that one thing, but he threw out other elements for them that maybe there was common ground, but they didn't see it. They were just angry that he wouldn't acknowledge they were right about this one point. So maybe you've experienced something like that in a seminar, in a talk, or something like that, where you see people really clashing like that. At the end of the 60 minutes, we kind of wrapped it up because three of the very young women, they were really emotional and in tears because for them, the environment is now. It's everything matters right this moment. He had to leave. As a joke, he really had to fly on another flight. And so he left the room. And the group went to the three women and consoled them in a very different way. You know, they said, we shouldn't have had this person come. They had been together, this group, for about 2 weeks. We had done different speeches together. And they said, we shouldn't have had this man come. He doesn't fit into the way we see things. And I went up to one of the girls and I said, actually, it's great because he doesn't see things the way that you see them. And it was a really good experience. Even though you're really angry and upset right now, I hope that you'll see that down the road, that this was a good class and he did share a lot of information. But I left the room and I went and got the speaker and asked him if he could come back in just before he left, if he could come back in and talk to those particular three women. I gave him their names. I said, please address them by name and go back in there and find common ground, because I know that you guys have mutual interests and visions about how you would like to accelerate some of these environmental initiatives that you're talking about. And I think it would be healthier for them if you could just go back in and end it that way, not in this dramatic sort of, we don't agree fashion. And he likes being a disruptor and all those things, but there is a way to do that with some grace for them as well. So I left them all in. In fact, when I walked back in the room with them, the three women looked at me like, oh, come on, don't bring this man anywhere near me. I don't want to see him. I was like, no, just try to find some common ground. And I left. So later that afternoon, I got a phone call and it was from the group organizer. And he said to me, could you come to the final dinner tomorrow night? The group has really been impacted by this masterclass and they would like to talk to you. Pardon me. And I said, sure, I'll go the next night. So the next night I went and, the group was there and we were talking and I got a chance to know them over the last few weeks, really lovely people. And they came up to me and they said, Nancy, how did you do that? How did you sit beside him and stay so calm and stay so professional? What happened there? How did you do that? So I kind of laugh because I'm a very, very emotional person. Just ask my husband, and I get very engaged in things that I am passionate about. But as I said to them, I learned something. I have let go of the need to be right. And when I've let go of the need to be right, I can actually listen and find opportunities that maybe wouldn't have come to me otherwise, because I just got caught in that moment. It's taken me 54 years to get to this point of saying I don't need to be right all the time. And I'm going to tell you how I got to this, if you'll let me share this moment with you. In 2021, my husband and I decided to co-write a book together. It's our love story. We have a wonderful, heartwarming love story. It started in 1990. It ends in 2010 when we got married. And it's an on again, off again relationship where we're all over the world, talking, not talking, one of those kinds of stories. But it's a genuine love story. And I wanted to do the story in a different way. So what we've done is something that's so unique you can't imagine. We wrote our story separately. We each start on the same day, the day that we met, and we end on the day that we get married. But we didn't see what each other wrote. We just wrote our story. Now, I have always believed that the version of my story is right. I've always believed that the reason it took 20 years for us to get together was because my husband couldn't get it. He just made all kinds of mistakes in his life, and it was his fault. So I had, and I have, 9 journals. And the journals just so happened to start the day that I met my husband, because we met at a French immersion program in Quebec, and they end when we get married 20 years later. He proposed to me in the early 90s, and I said no. And then he proposed to me again, and I said yes before he had a chance to change his mind in 2010. And I had my literal words that I could look at. Now, think about that. Go back into your 20s. Pick the best time of your life in your 20s. And imagine you could go back and read that word for word and know how you were at that time and what that felt like for you. Just imagine how great that would be in your own words. But then think about maybe some of the times that weren't so great. Think about moments in your life that were really full of hardship, full of loss, full of heartache. You couldn't get that job to work, and you have to go read that. I had 20 years of reading about my life word for word, and I wrote a lot. And it was very difficult for me. I didn't expect that. I just thought, let's just write this love story and it'll be great. So here's what happened. 2 things. I realized that my version of my story was very rarely correct. Nor was my husband's, but the way that our memory fed us wasn't exactly the case. So that was a good lesson to learn. But the other element that was much more difficult was that I spent most of my life trying to be right, whether it was with my friends, whether it was with my family, whether it was with work or somebody I fell in love with. Everything I did was because I thought I was right. I spent pages writing about how right I was, and I was annoyed that people didn't agree with me and see it my way. And I would spend so much time writing about that, what I just thought about, and I wrote what I'm going to say to them the next time, that I missed so many opportunities that were right in front of my face, and so much of the truth that was right in front of my face because I was just wanting to be right. And as I read the pages, I was filled with shame of my behavior. And part of that was specifically with my family. I have a very loving, close family. But I saw a pattern of the way I treated one of my brothers, and it was a constant division in my family because my brother didn't always tell the truth, let's say. It was half truth. And it would drive me crazy that my parents would always take his side and still give him all this love and unconditional support. And I'd say, wait a second here, he's not even telling the truth. How can you side with him? What's wrong? And I realized, reading this, a switch went on. It doesn't matter. Being right doesn't matter about the outcome of your situation. Sometimes the situation just needs other things. And if you're only focused on being right, then you're not going to get anything out of it, and you're not going to grow, and you're hurting people, because if you're right, someone else is wrong. And I also had, as I read my own words in my 20s and my 30s, I could feel myself physically reacting to that. And I thought I could never have made nurturing choices because I was just angry all the time, or I was, distracted by this need to be right. And so I called my brother right away, but not right away, about 3/4 of my reading through, I just couldn't take it anymore. My heart was heavy, and I called and I apologized. And I said, you were always there for me, and I don't think I was for you. And he just said, I love you, you're my sister. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to start applying this to my everyday life. Little things with my husband, as an example. Stop trying to do everything my way. It doesn't have to be my way. I don't have to be right. So what if something takes longer? So what if his way costs a few bucks more? It doesn't matter. With work at Forbes Monaco, I was editor in chief, and it's a high profile job, very male dominated. Monaco is very male dominated. And so a lot of the times as a woman, you come out defending yourself, defending what you believe in, sometimes just out of habit. And so I took a step back and thought, rather than just reacting to everything that my boss said to me by saying, no, I don't want to do it that way, I thought, no, the things that really matter to me, I will voice my opinion. And the other things, let's just see what happens when we do them someone else's way. Maybe we won't sell as many issues, or maybe this will happen. And it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So I really tried to apply this new way of being. But as you know, it's like going to a gym for 3 months. You think you can transform your body for life. You can't. It's so much work. And changing your mental perception is so much work. So I was trying to let go of this, narrative and having to be right, and my version of the story being right. And something happened to me in February of 2022 as we were rewriting the first version of this manuscript together. I'm an avid open water swimmer. I swim all year round in the Mediterranean here in the south of France in Monaco. And I was run over by a boat while I was swimming in the open water. And I was trapped under the boat, and I thought I was going to drown, because in those few seconds of whatever happened, I was in darkness and I was being pushed underwater, and I saw a motor coming to my head. And this moment of divine intervention, and it's the only way I can explain it. Perhaps I'm a spiritual person, but after this, there was something that told me it was not my time. My voice was needed for something else. But whatever swooped me from away from that boat and the motor and let me continue my life, I knew that was the time. So I dove into the spiritual side of myself, and I kept this idea, and I found Eckhart Tolle, a spiritual leader, and he had this great idea about our humans and our beings. And as I delved into that and was able to meditate more and be more spiritual, I was able to let go even more of being right. And when people would come at me, or where people didn't agree with me, I had his words in my head that would be, is that so? And I had to do that with my mom. I sent her the final manuscript. It was very difficult for my 90-year-old mother to read about her crazy daughter who was drinking and promiscuous, all these things I had hidden my whole life from her in this manuscript. She had to read them and accept that was who I am. And she was so angry in our first few phone calls following the reading of my book that I just had to say, is that so, in my head. I just had to let her be. I couldn't defend myself. I didn't have to be right about why I wrote the story, why I did these things. And it was the most difficult 3 weeks of my life until we got back on track. But it made me realize all of these things, the manuscript, getting hit by this boat, and understanding the difference between humans and beings and love, and just being there for other people. And in the end, what I've learned is that we are all the main characters of our stories, but we can let other people be the heroes. And I think today with Dr. Hala and this intercultural center, the London Intercultural Center, and all of you that are listening and all of you that are speaking, is an opportunity to bring in heroes to our story. And that is what I wanted to share with you today, that maybe this will work for you and maybe it won't, but being ongoing in life and allowing to be in this now and not worry about whether you're right or wrong, good open other opportunities for those heroes to come into your life. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me today.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Again, another inspiring story. It's about being true to yourself, having that courage to be true to yourself. Thank you. Very inspiring. So I just like to remind our participants too that this is a CPD certified event. So make sure that you've registered. We have provided the links, the link to the on how you can register so you can get your certificate for joining us. Thank you. So I'd like to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Natalie Boudreau. Natalie, let me know if I pronounce the last name correctly.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Natalie is an executive coach. She's the founder of Human Force and recently a published author. She has over 30 years experience in the corporate world, working in senior management roles in the private sector and the United Nations. She is the CEO and founder of, again, Human Force, international coaching and training consultancy, and works closely with leaders and teams to unleash the potential and strength of the human capital. Her work is focused on building cultures of care, belonging, and recognition, and has worked closely with very much multinational companies from a variety of sectors, like the pharma sector, FMCG, sports and luxury sector, and also various UN organizations to develop agile and people-centric cultures. Natalie is the best-selling author of Human Force, The Power of Emotions in a Changing Workplace, an engaging TEDx speaker, and has also delivered keynote speeches for corporates and leadership programs worldwide. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to share my screen. I hope that it works okay. Hope that everybody can see that. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm going to be talking today about emotions and women and power, three very important things. And I'm going to start off by just showing you three pictures of some well-known ladies, and you might wonder, why am I showing you this picture and what do they have in common? Apart from the fact that they are very well-known ladies, they are American, and they have a high profile. Well, interestingly enough, what's interesting about Oprah Winfrey is that when she was doing one of her talk shows back in 2019, her producer told her that she was expressing too much and she was too emotional. Kamala Harris, when she was back in 2017, talking and asking a question of the Attorney General, she was called hysterical for asking the pointed questions. And of course, Hillary Clinton, the presidential candidate back in 2016, her temperament and her moods and her likability were constantly being scrutinized by the media, and she was often called unhinged. And so these three remarkably intelligent women and successful women had their emotions called into question so many times. And I think it's this story and many other stories that have got me so passionate about emotions at work. And you'll see there a little bit about me. And in the middle, you can see me with my daughter, Elise. And this picture is really important to me because my daughter is autistic. And so bringing up an autistic child, juggling a career, hasn't been always that easy. But Elise struggles herself to identify her emotions and work with her emotions. And she does some really excellent work around this. And she's another reason, I think, why I'm so passionate and interested in emotions at work. And so let's think a little bit about emotions. Let's talk about emotions at work. Are they okay? Is it okay for us to share our emotions? Well, there are lots of different thoughts about this. And of course, it's a subject that has been taboo in the workplace for quite some time. But more recently, it's opening up a lot. And I think that the recent pandemic clearly gave this a help. And you know, more and more now we're thinking that emotions are well, that's part of our human nature, and it's not something that we can simply leave at home when we go into the workplace. And there's been a lot of surveys also that have been done recently to think, you know, are people starting to talk about emotions? A recent survey in the UK shows that actually it's still a bit tricky for people to talk about their emotions at work. You can see here 30% consider expressing emotions as a weakness, 59% have emotions that they suppress at work, and 1 in 3 UK workers conceal their true emotions. So clearly there's a lot of work to be done here. And I know that when I was growing up, I must have been about 4 or 5, my mum was worried because she told me that I was too emotional. And she took me to the doctor and asked the doctor if I needed some medication to calm down. Thankfully, the doctor didn't give me any medication. And I don't know if I did calm down. I suppose the people who know me today would best answer that. But clearly, it's a tricky subject. And as I grew up, my first career, I was a lawyer, and I worked in an environment which was quite sterile in the city of London, and certainly expressing emotions wasn't an easy thing. And as a woman, if I did show an emotion, there was instantly a judgment made about me and about me perhaps being a little bit weak or a little bit oversensitive. So I could notice what was happening, and of course, more and more I became more interested in the subject. And just to be clear, emotions are so important at work because they help us in all these different domains, all the things that we do at work. We need to have our emotions, whether we're learning, whether we're creating. We don't just make decisions with our head, we also make decisions with our heart. The relationships that we have, these are just a few examples, and it's not an exhaustive list, by the way, but if you think about it, we're constantly using our emotions at work. Emotions are really valuable, and I want to say that because they give us power. When you think of emotions, I like to describe emotions a bit like emails that come into your body. They come into your body a bit like they would come into your inbox, and they have a message, and they are there to make us move. They are there to make us take action, and they respond to a specific need. And for me, all emotions are valuable. Not just the happy ones and the positive ones, but also the more challenging ones. What could be the value of anger, for example? Anger is a super important emotion because it tells us that a value of ours has not been respected. Or maybe it tells us that something is not fair or unjust and that we need to draw a boundary. So it's a very important emotion. Fear, it's not a pleasant when you feel fear, but again, it's there because it's there to protect us. It's there to tell us that there's a danger and that we need to find a safe place. And lastly, of course, sadness. Most people are not too comfortable talking about sadness. Well, sadness tells you that you've lost something. It tells you perhaps that you need to accept, to let go as well. And so by being sad, very often that's the beginning of being able to move forward or to bounce back. So all of these emotions are super important. Now, the question that I'm often asked when I talk about women and emotions is, are women more emotional than men? Now, I've been called pushy, I've been called aggressive, I've been called touchy, I've been criticized for not smiling enough, and I've been told many times to cheer up at work. And I have lost count of the number of women who have shared similar experiences with me, particularly some of the senior women that I often coach, who tell me that the higher they climb up in their company, the trickier it is for them to express their emotions. And of course, there are so many stereotypes and myths around women and their emotions. And this is the same for men as well, by the way. I'm focusing on women today, but men too have their own stereotypes that they have to deal with. And these emotions come back, they come from societal norms, they're ingrained in us. And of course, every culture has a different approach. What's incredible is that when we ask this question, are women more emotional than men? Surveys show that women actually think that is the case. Women actually say very often yes, and men tend to agree. Well, maybe there's no surprise there. However, there's been a number of surveys which look into this and really, really study whether women are more emotional than men. You can see there's a fantastic study done by the University of Michigan in 2021, which says that men's emotions fluctuate as much as women's. And here a group of people were were monitored over a period of time, I think 75 days. And the results came back from the survey that the men's emotions and the women's emotions were the same, and they were the same in intensity as well. And there you've got another little study down there, which says that men are twice as likely to get emotional when their ideas are not heard or criticized, and are more likely to quit a job because of their emotions. So all of this to say that we are as emotional as men. The way in which we express our emotions, however, differs, and that is for sure. But we must get away from thinking that we are so emotional all the time. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the double bind, because I've been faced with the double bind. The double bind essentially is it's a mismatch. It's a mismatch between what is expected from somebody in a leadership position and the behaviors that are expected from a woman. Very often, if we look at the traditional, and I say the traditional leadership expectations, we expect people to be assertive, we expect people to be decisive, we expect people to be competent. And when a woman steps up to this, she can sometimes be penalized or criticized, because also women are traditionally expected to be caring, warm, emotional, sensitive. And so it's a bit of a no-win situation sometimes for women who are walking a tightrope, really, and not too sure quite how they should handle these expectations. What we do know, though, however, is that when women are criticised, it can be very damaging to their career progression. I was recently working with a senior lady who was telling me that since she has made it to a more senior role, she's experiencing far more difficulty with some of the people in her team. It's largely a male team. Mainly there are 2 women in the team, and when she raises her voice occasionally, sometimes, or when she gets a bit passionate about something, they are telling her constantly to calm down, and she finds that really distressing. So certainly when you criticize a woman and you tell her to calm down, particularly, for example, during a disagreement, what you're doing actually is you're taking away her power. We see this in politics and in media. If you go back to the 3 ladies that we saw at the beginning, they have often been told to calm down in a heated discussion, and it's so unfair. I don't know if you can relate to that at all. A research in the Sage Journals in 2022 revealed that labeling women as emotional, especially during a disagreement, can actually negatively affect the legitimacy of the argument. A woman and a man were role-playing, and when the woman was told to calm down, they were getting into a discussion, a bit of a heated discussion. When the woman was told to calm down, participants who were watching the conversation labeled her as emotional and thought that her argument was less legitimate. In the same scenario, when the man in the conversation was told to calm down, his argument was not labeled as less legitimate. So interesting to see how this plays out. So the question really then is, we respond to these biases and stereotypes around emotions. How can we as women and as men work with this? And how can leaders in organizations work around this? And I think that there are some really interesting things that we can do, that we should be thinking about in this area. And I want to share a few with you. So particularly from the leadership's perspective, I think it's really important for a leader to role model the right kind of behavior. I think it's absolutely important that they show how they don't themselves, they provide a safe space, and maybe they can be encouraging a safe space, that it's okay for you to come and talk about your emotions. It's okay occasionally to show your emotions. You won't be judged for it. I think leaders can also call it out when they see it. So they should be challenging stereotype language, or they should be challenging behaviors if they notice it. They should recognize individuality, emphasizing that everybody's emotional responses are valid. And I think encouraging inclusive and open discussions, both with men and women, experiences and talk about the impact of any stereotypes, because I think it's only when we listen to each other that we can really understand where the other person might be coming from. Of course, you can train and you can raise awareness, and you may even be able to implement some policies around this. But there's clearly a lot of work that organizations and leaders can do to work around these stereotypes. And what about women and men? What can we do? Well, I think it's really important that women speak out about their own experiences, because sometimes we feel alone with this, and sometimes we can help each other out. Talking about your own experiences is really important. Challenge where possible. If you can challenge the behavior, then I think it's great. Certainly, women who are more senior, I think, you may disagree with me, but I think women almost have a duty to challenge where possible and to say that this isn't acceptable. Women and men can support each other. They can be allies in this, and that really requires a conversation and understanding, because as I mentioned earlier, men have their own issues around stereotypes about how they are supposed to behave at work. Men and women should consider their own biases. And lastly, a point that was if you are struggling with this area, work with a mentor, somebody who may have encountered this difficulty, and who can really help in this area. And so what I'd like to do lastly really is to make a call to action to all of you. And I hope that this call of action resonates with you. I think emotions are really powerful. I think that they help to motivate us, they help us to grow. And I think that when we can bring those emotions to work as women, and when we can leverage them in the right way, we can be our authentic selves. And that's really powerful. But when we have to hide our emotions, or when our emotions are stereotyped, then our power is taken away. So let's honor every emotion. Let's have open conversations about emotions. Let's give emotions a space that they deserve, and let's challenge each other. And the next time someone calls you aggressive or too emotional at work, you might like to do what I now do. I say thank you. Emotions are my superpower. What's your superpower? Thank you.
Wow. Powerful closing, Natalie. Thank you. I think I'll take that one-liner. I've been told that, I'm so meek, I'm so quiet, but you have to see the strength in that. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. So for moving on to our next speaker will talk about leading with purpose, strategies for inclusive leadership. And our next speaker is Janet. Janet is Janet James, a seasoned global talent, organizational, and leadership development leader with extensive experience in diverse industries such as healthcare, technology, and financial services. She has successfully crafted and implemented progressive talent interventions, fostered inclusive ecosystems, and developed diverse leadership pipelines. Her Master in Science dissertation at the esteemed London School of Economics delves into the authentic experience of inclusion for senior leaders. She also recently contributed to a Talent Trends 2024 report, highlighting the transformative impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion in organizations. So welcome, Janet.
Thanks, Maria, and thanks to LSE as well to have us all here. I would like to say good evening and possibly good night to some of our attendees who have joined us from all over the world. Thank you for taking the time to join this critical conversation on inclusion and empowerment. And I have the privilege to be here with all of you to talk about leading with purpose. I'm actually going to throw a question to the audience out here, the attendees especially. Panelists, feel free to jump in as well. But I'm going to ask the attendees, what do they think purpose is? when they hear the word purpose, what do you think it is? If you could just type in your answer, that'll be fantastic. And Hadi, in case I'm not seeing some comments, please do highlight it. I do have the comments panel open. Any of the panelists would like to share what they think purpose is? No? Okay. Okay. Thanks, Maya, for sharing. The state of being that enables you to feel as true a state of freedom as possible. So I'm hearing authenticity and just being yourself, right? I'm also seeing some more comments that having a reason behind what you do. That's so important. Thank you. I'm going to refer to you as guest, because that's how I see you. It's really the purpose. It's the why, what drives you. And another person says it's my tomorrow has to be better than today. So thank you. That is extremely wonderful to hear. And I'm going to share my screen and talk about two particular definitions that really resonated with me. And I'll tell you why as well. So Viktor Frankl, for all those who don't know him, he is a renowned Austrian psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. He lived in concentration camps and lost a lot of family members there. And I think it's extremely profound to hear him talk about purpose and finding meaning in our lives despite the circumstances that we're in. So he talks about having a deeper sense of fulfillment and satisfaction from purpose. I also talk about John O'Brien and Andrew Cave's definition of purpose because they go beyond just people, right? They go beyond individuals having purpose. They say organizations need to have purpose as well. It's the why that guides their direction, their meaning, their decisions and actions. And this is important because in today's day and age, especially post-COVID, and with the demands of the current generation, there is a need to join more purposeful organizations. They very often leave organizations because they're not aligned to the purpose. So remember, purpose is evolving as well. It depends on your context, the phase of the life that you're in. And that's absolutely fine, as long as you're aware that you need to look at what is your purpose and what is your North Star, because that'll help you with your priorities, will help you with your decisions, especially when you have conflicting priorities, and especially when you're at crossroads. And the most important differentiator of purpose versus passion is that, one, this is deeper, it's more long-term, and two, the fact that it is not just a positive value to yourself, but it is a positive value to people around you or the world around you. Now let's look at why purpose is important for inclusion. And some of the examples of purpose when I had discussions in my research interviews or in my conversations with leaders and people across ages and genders, very often you hear purpose is about creating an impact. It's about leaving a legacy. It's about ensuring, I'm going to quote an attendee here who said that my tomorrow is better than today. So purpose, it doesn't depend on whether you join a nonprofit organization. You can find purpose anywhere and you can create that impact anywhere. And the reason why we talk about purpose and inclusion is because if you look at inclusion and inclusive organizations, it means that every one of us, if you just look at all of us here, panelists and attendees, each one of us so distinct and so unique. And an inclusive organization looks at that uniqueness and respects it, while also ensuring that you feel a sense of belonging with the team, the business, and the organization. And that's an optimal balance. Very often, you feel a sense of belonging, but you let go of your uniqueness because you feel the pressure to conform, or vice versa. Right? So inclusive organizations really make each distinctive voice feel seen, heard, valued, and respected. So if you look at it that way, purpose is the linchpin of inclusion. It promotes empathy and understanding. It promotes a mission alignment. It promotes a lot of collaboration. And if you have to really look at the hard-hitting impact of inclusion, I have some numbers here for you as well. Inclusive companies are much more innovative, 1.7 times more innovative. You also have an impact on consumers. 78% of your consumers are more likely to buy from you. Your employees are 31% more engaged, and you make better team decisions by almost 80% as well. So there's a lot of hard-hitting numbers on why inclusion is important, be it gender or be it anything else. And today we're focusing on gender. But I do want to talk about a story that a business leader I was recently coaching shared, because that just resonated with me at a very deep level. He said, all of this is great, but I look at the impact of gender inclusion at an economic level. He said, if you look at most countries, women constitute 15%, if not more, of the country's population. And if we are not leveraging this natural resource to contribute to the productivity and the GDP of the country, it's an absolute waste. That really, really stayed with me and has got me a lot more passionate about ensuring that we create inclusive environments for each other. So let's look at how we do this. Werner Myers says that diversity is about being invited to the party and inclusion is about being asked to dance. So how is it that we can dance our unique dances, but together and harmoniously? Because inclusion, by the way, is much, much more difficult than diversity. So if you look at the different blocks of inclusion, let's start at a micro level, because I want to state that each one of us, and I can see that we have people from all over the world, we have women, we have men, and possibly other gender identifications as well here. And each one of us has a role to play to create this inclusive environment, whether we're at work, whether we're studying, whether we are in our personal spaces as well, right? So one is really about speaking up. And when I'm saying speaking up, it's not just being an advocate, like I've mentioned here, for the minorities or for the other women around you. And it doesn't honestly matter what level you're at. Because a lot of women I've spoken to think that they need to be at a managerial or leadership level to be able to speak up and create that impact. That's a myth. You need to dispel that myth, because every person at every level really creates that impact, and every small step in the right direction builds inclusion. So speak up in terms of if you see something is wrong. And by the way, when we say wrong, we can talk about just the most basic factors like language. Is someone saying a joke that could be harmful or could be sensitive to some other group or to women, and they have unintended actions behind it? Can you call it out and find the space to do it? That's going to be important. Another one will be how you as women speak up for yourselves. And the one common space, I know this is across levels and across ages, and doesn't matter where you're from. I know a lot of women struggle with negotiating, right? Be it your salary, be it your promotion, be it your opportunities. But how is it that you can hold your value and really speak up and say, this is what I contribute, this is what I add in terms of value, and this is what I deserve, right? So really speaking up is going to be important. And have more listening conversations. The conversations that I really enjoy are the reflective, non-judgmental conversations, which I have, again, with people across the globe and across generations. because I learn a lot more. I know I'm speaking to you as a panelist here, but I still have a long way to really understand the many nuances of this evolving space of inclusion. And it's through these listening, curious conversations that you can really understand what is happening, how different people, different women react in different situations, what are their values, what are their aspirations, and really bringing that all together. And remember, this is for people across genders. We're not saying women only speak with women, we're saying all of you talk, because it's not an us versus them, it's all of us collectively building this slowly and steadily. And it's also important to know people at a human level. We need to understand who they are and the intersectionality. So when I say intersectionality, when you look at me, most people will see an Indian woman leader, but I'm beyond that. I'm a Christian. I've gone to convent schools. I have studied in urban cities. I have worked abroad. So all of that actually constitutes who I am. So when you get to know people at a human level, you go beyond what you just see, you go beyond the stereotypes. If I look at the interpersonal levels, one is building allies, like I said, both men and women, looking at mentorship and sponsorship. And this is specifically for leaders and managers. Can you create safe spaces and feedback channels for people, for women to stand up and speak up, to say, I don't feel valued, or I'd like to be heard more, I'd like more visibility. And remember when I say leaders, I'm not just talking about leaders in certain roles. I'm talking about even mothers. I'm talking about people in positions where you influence the growth of someone else. You create 70% of the experience of inclusion for them. So that is a huge impact that you have on them. And if I look at it at a macro level, the organization needs to support you in terms of having an inclusive culture, in terms of having very transparent policies and practices, which look at equity and not just equality, understanding that everyone is different. So you have a role to play. Maybe some of you can do just the micro. Maybe some of you can do all in that position of influence, but I'm here to say that each one of you matters. Your voice matters. So speak up and act up a lot more. And I'd like to leave you with this thought in terms of purpose of what is a legacy that you want to build, that you want to leave behind? How do people talk about you? How do you make people feel? And what can you do to make the world a better and more inclusive place? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Janet. I like the way that you have broken it down to three pillars, like, how we can do it on our own, and then in different levels in the organization. Thank you so much. So moving on, I'd like to ask one of our speakers to introduce the next round of speakers for our lightning talk. So I'd like to call in Malin, pass over the stage to Malin to introduce our speakers. Go ahead, Malin.
Hi, everyone again. Yes, I have the pleasure to introduce Maya Shafari. So Maya is is aesthetic doctor, national trainer. It's a bit of a tongue twister here because she's done so much, and she's also a surgeon, motivational speaker, and a life coach. So she's helping women and men build their confidence and teaching the secret of success through spiritual growth. So her unique way and approach integrates traditional medical knowledge with spiritual wisdom, and offering that sort of comprehensive approach to healing and self-discovery. So practically it's the best of both worlds, and truly a medical force of nature, and inspiring women from all over the world. So welcome, Maya. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Malin. Thank you, Dr. Hala and Hadi and the team for allowing me to be here today and to speak to everybody, and for organizing this wonderful event. I am forever in awe of how you managed to bring so many different people from so many corners of the world together and somehow make it incredible every single time. So thank you so much. My talk really is about my own personal journey and a slightly different approach to leadership and womanhood compared to other esteemed colleagues who have spoken today. Firstly, I'd like to say how incredible everybody's presentations has been. I'm a little nervous today, although I speak quite publicly quite a lot, and I can't actually see any of you. I'm nervous because what I will share with you is my own very personal journey today. And this is why I am here today, is to bring to you an authentic version of me, which is really the message behind this presentation. I was a refugee child to the UK from Iran when I was 13 years old, and I had gone from being the best version of myself as a child that I could have possibly been and having everything that I could have possibly wanted to coming to an entirely different world without speaking a word of English, without knowing how to connect to this new environment, to people, and without having any sort of help, support, finances, education, or anything that meant anything in this world, this part of the world. I was blessed with an incredible set of parents and siblings, and I must say that love goes a long way in strengthening you when you feel like your entire world has fallen apart. Many of us as adults have experienced this complete destruction of what we know our reality to be, but imagine being 13 and starting again in an entirely different environment, an environment that makes you question yourself every step of the way, an environment where facts around you tell you that you are destined for failure because you are so far behind every single other person that you see around you. And your inability to communicate with people around you means that even those who are willing to support you are unable to do so. So how did I get from there to making my dreams come true one step at a time? And I still have huge dreams that I'm working towards. How did I go from being a refugee child to being a cancer surgeon, to building an aesthetic business, to writing, to speaking, and to really living my own truth in my own way? And I suppose the way in which I did that was by taking an internal dive, because in a world where you cannot communicate with anybody at all, you cannot relate to anybody at all, you do find yourself incredibly lonely and incredibly alone. And when you are in that situation, you really only have two ways to go. One way is within and the other is nowhere. So I chose to dive within myself because that kind of still made me feel relatable on some level. It gave me hope on some level. And I wondered whether if I could conform, if I could become better, if I could blend in with my external environment, whether I could be as successful as everybody else that I could see around me. But what I actually gained from this dive within is that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So my greatest power in changing my environment and my circumstances and my destiny was to change myself and the way in which I looked at my circumstances. My journey has really truly taught me that your greatest power and your greatest strength lies within your greatest weakness. But I digress. We'll move back to what this day is about, which is about women in leadership positions and what it takes to be a female leader. And I want to approach this from a perspective of a female surgeon, a brown female surgeon at that, in the UK. And I have been through quite a lot of learning points during this journey, but I suppose I've picked a few to talk about today. One of them, Natalie, has so eloquently and beautifully touched upon, and that's emotions. And the stereotypes of being a female leader and being an emotional leader. And Natalie said very beautifully everything that is true about emotions and how significant they are in projecting your true, authentic self to the world. But something else that I wanted to add to what she's already beautifully said is that there is a difference between being emotional and being emotionally intelligent. And I think one of the major differences that I have seen amongst female leaders and male leaders, not a blanket generalization, but just our innate divine feminine and divine masculine, we each have different strengths and different weaknesses, is that female leadership is often mostly based on emotional intelligence. But emotional intelligence must be reciprocated and understood, otherwise it can be interpreted as being emotional. And I think these two things are entirely different. Emotional intelligence will allow for empathy, which is very important in the job that I come from, as with anything else in life. It allows creation of a safe space for people. It allows conflict resolution. And correct me if I'm wrong, but these are all of the qualities that's required in leadership. In fact, when you apply for a leadership position in any job front, they do ask for these qualities and for you to provide evidence based on these qualities. But I think as women, we have been brought up in a society, whether it's the West or East, it doesn't matter. We've been brought up in a society where we have tried very much to gain positions at the top of our fields where it is particularly male dominated. And because we are often misunderstood in our approach to problems, in our approach to life, and in our approach to situations, simply because we have innate differences to men, is that we have tried very hard to gain spaces in these sort of top of the ladder jobs by becoming more like what we see is acceptable. So by becoming more like men. And the difference I have realized as I go up the ladder in surgery is that the more I try to conform to what I see around me, the less successful I can be as a person, the less productive I will be as a person, because I'm going against the grain of what makes me who I am. I am trying, everybody is a 50-50 blend of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, but much like any environment, the flora of that environment for thriving depends on balance. And I think when I started my career as a surgeon, I wanted to be more like the men. I wanted to go up the ladder quite quickly. I wanted to do this as quickly as possible and do it as effortlessly as possible and to do it as seamlessly as possible. And I started to sacrifice a lot of what makes me who I am as the divine feminine. And I started to strengthen the divine masculine within me to conform and to blend. But the more I go up the ladder, the more I realize that my true power and strength lies in what I bring to the table. And I bring the other half of the medical world to the table. I bring empathy. Of course, I bring intelligence, and I bring service provision, and I bring everything skill set that my male counterparts do. But my unique selling point is not in being identical to them. My unique selling point is my emotional intelligence, is my divine feminine, is my ability to express empathy to a point where a patient would feel like they are a family member to me. Now, this may seem unprofessional to somebody who does not know the difference between emotional and emotional intelligence, but that doesn't change the fact that the experience of that patient walking away from me is very different to walking away from a male counterpart. And I learned to celebrate that difference and to understand that that uniqueness that we bring to leadership positions as women is in fact very much needed in the field that I work in. The other thing I wanted to talk about is about glass ceilings and what we have been brought up to believe as women. So if you're watching this event today as an observer and you're wondering how you can make your dreams a reality, how can you fight the sexism in the field that you're going in, how can you fight the male-dominated environment, I am here to tell you that you don't need to fight anything. You are as close to the creator as creation can be. You are a woman and you are a creator in your own rights. And what you need to do is to cultivate your side of the story. You need to cultivate your unique power. You do not need to conform. You do not need to fight. You do not need to go against the grain of what makes you who you are. Glass ceilings are there, but they are there for many genders and races and cultures. Anytime you approach, for instance, if you are a man from an ethnic minority, there will be a glass ceiling for you there compared to your other counterparts who are not from an ethnic minority background. And what we've been taught, particularly as minorities in life, whether you're a woman or of an ethnic minority background, is that you must try to break through this ceiling. I don't really believe in that. I believe that part of this narrative This narrative that they have sold us about glass ceilings is so that you believe in it. In reality, you do not need to break through anything. You do not need to conform, and you do not need to be treated exactly the same as your male counterparts. You need to simply learn how to express that divine feminine within you. And what you bring to the table is so unique that when there is no room, they will make a room for you. When there is no more chairs to fit around the table, they will make a bigger table. Because really, we live in a society where maximizing profit and maximizing service and maximizing impact is the name of the game. So if you bring something to the table that's unrivaled, a room will be made for you at that table. And this has definitely been the truth in my career path, but I understand that I only speak for myself. There is also the element of confidence versus aggressiveness. And I think a couple of our speakers have already touched upon this. So I would say very briefly what I believe about that. And I think my version of truth when it comes to that is that, yes, as a female surgeon, when I put my foot down, for instance, if I want a specific instrument or if I want things done a certain way, I am labeled as the female surgeon diva. It is me being a diva because I'm simply asking for the equipment I need to perform the job that I've been hired to do. Whereas if my male counterpart asks for it, nobody really questions how they are asking for it. But what I really want to say is that we can either bog down on the situation where we are focused on how we are perceived, or whether we can understand that people's perception is a reflection of the knowledge that they have about the world, about you, and about themselves. People see the world as they are, not as it is. And I think that's true for all of us. I see the world as I am inside, not as it is outside. Because as I said at the beginning of this presentation, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You are not responsible for anybody else's perception of you. You are only responsible for the reflection and the energy that you put into the world. And as long as when you're sleeping at night, your conscience is clear that your way of approaching success in your life, your way of approaching whatever it is that you're doing in life is at the best interest of the entire human race and is at the best interest of yourself, and it is the best version of yourself, then you have nothing to worry about. People's perception changes over time, and sometimes it takes a little time to prove to people who you are. And as long as you stand your ground and you stand in your truth, you will be perceived that way eventually. It may be a bit of a long road in some cases, but people's interpretation of you is not your problem. The other thing that I wanted to address is about equality versus cloning. I have never desired to be treated the same as a man because I am not a man. I have always thought about equality in terms of genders in a workplace, that if I provide a service that is equal to a man, my compensation for that service should be the same. But by no means do I want to be treated identical to a man. What I do and who I am are two different things. I had this conversation with a colleague the other day, and he said, sort of with a smirk on his face, that, oh, it's a man's world. And my response to that was that it is indeed a man's world, because if you look around yourself on the planet with the amount of conflict, with the issues that we currently have in the world, with the problems that leaders are bringing to the table, it is indeed a man's world. I'm not saying a woman's world would be better, but a woman's world would certainly not look like this. And I said to him that I find it quite interesting that he's so proud of that statement that this is a man's world and women just have to fit in it. We are not fitting into your world because we don't perceive the world in that way. And I speak for myself. I don't perceive the world the same as a man does. So to make a statement to say it is a man's world, quite proud in the way that he was articulating this, I hope I made him think a little bit about what that actually means and how much there is to actually be proud of. So I have no interest in being equal to a man, but if I provide a service that's equal to a man, the compensation for that service should also be equal. This is easier said than done, of course, and a lot of traditional workplaces like mine finding it very difficult to make adjustments for that notion. But time will tell. Last couple of points that I wanted to mention. One is about mentorship as women. Despite what I have said so far, one of my most amazing realizations in my career so far has been that I have had far more support and far more care from my male senior counterparts than I have had from females. And I think part of that reason is probably because women have had to go through so much more hardship to arrive at senior levels, where we feel like we have thicker skin and our counterparts should also do. But what I would say is that as a woman, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility in higher positions to ourselves, but also to other young women who are coming along the way in our career paths and are trying to climb the ladder. You lose nothing by lifting others as you climb. You really do not. And I think you learn so much more about yourself, so much more about compassion, and so much more about love when you do extend a hand and help other women along the way, and just help other people along the way. But we're talking about women today. So I would implore every woman on this talk today to really have a look around and look at those women who are actually not asking for help. Look at those who are suffering in silence. Look at those who find it very difficult to adapt to their environment. Be mindful and spatially aware of the women around you, because one of the things that we do as women is that we internalize everything and we try to do everything on our own. We can't really trust our environment as easily as men can. And this goes beyond physical safety. Sometimes we don't even feel emotionally safe to express what it is that we want and what we need. So I think I implore you as women to look around, but look at those who are silent. Even in a medical emergency, if you arrive at a scene, those who are screaming are still alive and breathing. Is the ones who are quiet you should be worried about. And I think in these high pressure jobs that we are often in, is the quiet women that need you the most. And last but not least, my final thoughts are that your true strength lies in embracing your authentic self, honoring the divine feminine. It is in your vulnerability that your greatest power lies. And it is your weakness that really is your greatest strength. It's a bit like an acorn and an oak tree. Pay attention to your weaknesses, and instead of hiding them and trying to blend in with your environment, I really want you to do a deep dive into those weaknesses, because that's where your lessons are, that's where your power is, and that's where your uniqueness is. So you are as close to the creator as creation can be. Never forget that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. That was really amazing and very inspiring, and I think we can all agree with what you've said. It's so very, very important to attain your own person and to celebrate femininity and all that beautiful characters that come with it. We are moving on to our next speaker, and if I had a half an hour, I would probably go through about half of her accomplishments, what she's done so far, but I don't. So I'm just going to take a little snippet of the amazing accomplishments of Supa Safari. So sorry for my pronunciation, Mays. She's a governor. She's going to talk about inclusion and innovation, how to empower diverse voices. So just a short snippet of what this incredible woman has done in her working life. So she has worked in corporate and retailing she did that for about 25 years. At tender age of 29, she managed over $100 million annual operation for a #1 retailer. She's a serial entrepreneur with so many talents and companies under her belt, and some of these include the owner of an inclusion and community radio station. She's got restaurants, fashion line. She's an oil exploration investor, and this is just to name a few. And in addition to this, she's the governmental candidate for the governor of Arkansas. So I don't know how she does it, but she has done it and she continues to do it. So a very, very warm welcome to Supa.
Or Yusufa, I think you're muted. If you're speaking right now, we cannot hear you.
So we are waiting for Governor Supa to join us. Let's hope there is no technical issue with her. Okay, finally. Welcome, Supa. The mic is yours.
Governor Supa, you are still muted. We cannot hear you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think, yeah, Supa, we can't hear you.
Yes, we still cannot hear you, Governor Supa. If you try turning off the video and speaking, let us know if maybe try that, and we will let you know if we can hear your audio. No, we cannot hear you as well. And so maybe at this time, while Governor Supa is still trying to fix the audio in the video, we have one question from the audience. Is Natalie around? Because the question is meant for her.
Yes, I am
I
here.
think, yeah, maybe we have some, a minute to reply to that question. The question was, hold on. In the corporate world, a woman is more often targeted by another woman in a senior or leadership role than by a man. What do you feel about this?
I'm not sure that that's absolutely true. I mean, what I do think, and it makes me very sad, is that, and I think, sometimes women can be unfair with other women, particularly if they've had to work hard to get where they are, and it's been difficult for them. Then they feel, that it's been tough for them. So why necessarily shouldn't it be tough for the other women too? And that's very sad, because what we want is for women to support each other. But I honestly feel that it's probably, both sides, to be honest with you. That's my experience. I don't know if that's answering the question, but that's my experience.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome.
So, yeah. Governor Supa, are you ready for us?
Ladies, while waiting for Governor Supa, just to adjust her access to the internet, I think Dr. Maya has raised a real important question, the difference between emotional intelligence and emotions. So, Natalie, do you think that if you are emotional, if you are able to express your emotions, then you are emotionally intelligent?
Absolutely. I mean, when we look at emotional intelligence is really defined in this way. It's twofold. It's about being able to identify your own emotions and to work with those emotions, as well as to being able to identify the emotions of others and to work with the emotions of others. So being emotional is certainly part of emotional intelligence, knowing your emotions, identifying them, being comfortable with them, and then of course working with them is part of emotional intelligence. It's the self part, really. That is how we define it in our world anyway. Yes.
Yeah. So does it apply to all types of emotions? Because we usually hear that at the workplace, in the world of business, you should be composed and, especially when it comes to feelings of anger or frustration, whatever.
Yes.
So I just want to make it clear for our audience that at the work environment, we usually advise everyone to be in a composed, let's say, status in which you are able really to control your emotions, control your anger or your stress, whatever. And
Well, I
we
think
usually go for, I'm sorry for interrupting, we go for advice in terms of, learning how to breathe, how, just let go of this, negative feelings we sometimes experience, whether we are overburdened with work or uh, whatever, or burned out. So can you just, elaborate on this a little
sure.
bit?
Well, I don't know if you remember back in my presentation, I talked a little bit about the fact that all emotions are useful. There is a reason why we are angry, why we get sad, why we get worried, for example. And sometimes those challenging emotions can help us. If you think about a group of people marching outside in the street for a cause that they believe in, very often if they're looking for justice, they're angry. And it's that anger that pushes them to move, that pushes them to fight for a cause, for example. Emotions can sometimes, even the challenging ones, can be really important. And the other thing also to think about, Dr. Haller, is that what you don't want is what we call sometimes in the workplace toxic positivity. So we don't want a workplace where everything is positive and happy and wonderful, because very often that's a sign that certain things are not being looked at, or certain things are being ignored, or certain things are hidden. So it's very important to get a really good balance between the energy-giving emotions, the happy emotions, and also the challenging ones, because they will tell us something, and we can use them to make our decisions or to move forward in some way.
So in this way, I might understand in my own perception that it's a call to acknowledge your feelings.
Yeah.
It's a call to accept how you feel about things and not to suppress your emotions deep inside.
You're
Because,
absolutely right.
suppressing your emotions sometimes might lead to diseases or whatever. So maybe it's a call to acknowledge your feeling. It's a kind of self-awareness, just to understand how your emotions sometimes are driving your physique.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I couldn't have put it better myself, actually. It's really important for your health and well-being, but also for, for when you're with other people, because you have an impact on other people. It's really important to be able to welcome your emotions. And there's a lot of, tips and tools around that and strategies, but to be aware, firstly, self-awareness, because self-awareness is really part of leadership. It's part of, it's a wonderful thing to be self-aware. And to be able to not be frightened of your emotions and to welcome them and to understand what's behind them. Because as I said, they have a message. And when you can do that, you can be so much more effective as well. And the other thing to know also is that emotions, they don't last very long. They come and they go and they come and they go. So if you are welcoming them, they will leave eventually. But if you suppress them, if you push them under the carpet, they will come back. And sometimes they will come back even more strongly. and stop you from maybe sleeping at night, or they'll wake you up in the middle of the night. So,
So first step would be to acknowledge your emotions and maybe then learn how to express them in a positive way, whether
absolutely.
through writing, through drawing, right? So maybe this will help us and will
Yes.
help our audience of women
Yeah.
become artists, painters,
Yeah.
authors. So in this way, we are manipulating the way we have feelings about the world around us, about people, but in a positive way.
Yes, I like the way you put that. There are so many beautiful ways and wonderful ways to express your emotions, and to learn how to do that well, because expressing your emotions is also a difficult thing. For some, it's easier than others, and to do it in the right way, so that actually what you do is that you actually respond rather than react as well. We talk about responding, and that you have a choice in life about how you handle things. So there's this wonderful thing about responding rather than reacting.
Thank you so much. Our beautiful
Thank you so much,
host,
Natalie. Yeah.
Maria,
Yes, Dr.
is it
Hala. I
working?
think right now Governor Supa is having issues with her connection. So we want to move on to our next speaker. We have Fiona Bannister, but she is actually on the attendee side. So Fiona, I will allow you to unmute yourself, but I'm going to ask Natalie to introduce you first. So Fiona, if you are, if you can—
Recording in progress.
Yeah, if you can unmute yourself, and then we can have your we can have you in your talk right now after Natalie has done the introduction.
Yes. So, well, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Fiona Bannister. She has so many talents and so many strengths. She's a solutionist. She is a catalyst for impact investment, climate resilience, and sustainable development. Supported by a multi-talented and multinational team, she works on curating deep decarbonisation and targeting solutions that help environmental innovation, all with the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals. So she leads a global team under her NGO, decarbonized.org, and she is a leader in biodiversity conservation technology for the protection of rainforests. So a warm welcome to Fiona. The floor is yours.
Thank you so very much. May just hi, thank you so very much. We're having a technical day, which is fabulously funny that I'm able to see you, but I cannot join up and add in my slides here. So just one quick second. The link wasn't working on the other area. So is there a way for you to bring forth my slides at all? It's a technical question. And also,
so Fiona, I will give you access. Just give me 1 second. Hold on.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I don't understand what went wrong here on the Zoom. You know what it is when you move from one, which is a Zoom here on the cell phone, you actually, that's a technical mess up. I have a fantastic new iPad that doesn't take.
Fiona, I think you can share your screen now. Please try.
Thank you so very much. Wonderful.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Well, it is my pleasure to take you down a rabbit hole of a journey of many different ways of how the way of life can interact with you, the way that we can build relationships together. And I'm hoping that in a quick second, I'm able to share using the tool here. Are we able to bring up and share slides? Is that we're not able to add in and share slides? Okay. Well, okay, I guess I'll go slideless then. Thank you so very much. I'm going to double check that everybody can hear me because I'm got Maria is speaking at the same time and I can't see or understand what happened there.
Yeah. So Fiona, can you try clicking on the share screen on the bottom of your screen? It's a green button there. And then, do you see that? Can you see the green share screen?
I was unable to get on using my laptop, which is an iPad. It wasn't connecting through. So I gather I can't through here. Well, we'll just, I'm working on a tremendous amount of slides. I feel that's a real shame, taking you on an adventure without the pictures, but I'll describe the journey then. Is there anybody on the technical side that's going to be able to support that?
Hattie, are you able to help out on this?
I'm not able to see actually.
Fiona, if you can share the presentations with Maria.
Okay, I think this is, I'm so apologetic, but it just doesn't seem to be working technically for me this morning. I have been attempting to get in using my laptop. So because it was sent during using a WhatsApp, that the link is not active coming across into email.
Yeah,
So
no worries. You can proceed. I think you are more important and your story is far more important than the slides. And I am sure you are so expressive. So we will enjoy watching you just telling us about the amazing things you want to tell the audience. So just go ahead, and we are all ears and eyes watching you and enjoying your presentation.
wonderful. Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah.
You were saying, who would I send an email to with my slides?
Yeah, so no need for the slides, my dear Nell. So you can just go ahead and present.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
The journey is that I don't talk about myself traditionally. It is that I am representing a group of wonderful women, children, activists, Indigenous leaders that have been part of the X Prize Rainforest Conservation Technology Prize that we've just competed in the past 4 years. We have, as a collective, we have gone deep in the rainforest. We have worked on Indigenous tribal community leadership. We've worked with the women, the children, with the community fishermen, with the farmers, with the community leaders. And so for me to speak, it's as if I'm the wrong person. So being humble and being clear and kind in that way, it's essential to think about how do we, each of us, interact and represent not just ourselves, but that of the voice of those, maybe the frogs, maybe it was the rainforest communities that we don't know, the microbial bugs underneath the rainforest. So we've had an incredible journey over this past 4 years, and empowering also humanity and people other than ourselves to think about what we're doing on the planet and how we can affect change. So coming back to myself, I was a very young daughter of a scientist who was a sports medicine, a teacher. He was a scientist that took me through his journey, taking us on kinesiology, physiology, on the human spirit. And the core that came into my mind as I moved forwards in this life was, how can I be a better educator? How can I learn every day from people, from the planet, from humanity, from the multiple cultures that I can encounter and who I've been able to interact with? And so this is what has been inspirational for me. And I hope that the work that I lead under decarbonize.org has also been able to support others, especially those with multiple languages, multiple cultures. And today is a very important day. It's Women's Day, but not just women, but men and young gentlemen. It's about us all being able to support each other in a humanitarian and embrace our differences and find also our connections together. So I wish to thank the opportunity to be participating together with incredible group of other women here and men, as well as those around the globe, so that we can find a universal language and speak together so that we can have the time, the grace, and the humility to interact as a global set of systems, system thinkers, and catalyst change makers. Dr. Halal, I wish to thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Fiona. May I ask you, I know from your story and from your profile and from connecting with you that you have been in close contact with nature. You have special love for animals and for, reserving nature. Can you just tell us so far, what have you gained through that connection, that bonding with the nature around you? Because I feel that it's so spiritual. It's so spiritual. It's so unique, and it's so different from whatever we have discussed before.
Thank you. Yes, it's to see a hummingbird come and know the biomimicry of the earth, the magic of how its beak fits directly into pollen it with the flower. How exquisite the size, the sap of inside of that flower that attracts that hummingbird. What a gift to know where you're meant to be and where you're meant to go, and those relationships between a bird and a flower. And I think that we as humans have our capacity as well to go deep inside of ourselves to find how we can enact not just with our own power, but that also with others. And so to me, the nature is a place of learning. It's a deep forest. Every time we can look out at the ocean or look into the eyes of an animal and be able to think about ourselves and our collective responsibility on this planet. It's very humbling. It puts us back to being just one species comparative to us thinking that we own this earth It is actually the earth that is teaching us.
I see how you know, now you got so emotional, and you know, it's so beautiful just for women to express their emotions, their connection with nature around them. You did so beautifully, Fiona. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yes. Thank you all. I know we're on a schedule right now. So my greatest gift I can pollinate forwards would be to suggest that we, each one of us, can find inside of ourselves today a little seed that we can bring forwards and plant on this earth and share it with others in all directions as the wind blows. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Maria, are you with us?
Yes, thank you so much, Fiona. That's very moving too. You know, having that, hearing that connection to earth, to nature is very important for us to be able to really have that authenticity within ourselves. Thank you so much, and thanks for being so flexible. You know, sharing your story without your slides. And so, with that, we would like to check if we have our next speaker, Dr. Cornelia. So Indira is, are you ready to introduce Dr. Cornelia? I guess I can give you the mic now.
Of course, I'm ready. I'm just overwhelmed with these beautiful stories, and I would certainly not miss to welcome my Swiss peer, our esteemed guest. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Cornelia Kavan. She is an executive in the Swiss electricity regulator and the founder of Energy-On. During her corporate career, she has held various management positions in several energy companies in Europe, all the while founding 2 startups. As a personal energy strategist under the brand Energy-On, Cornelia empowers busy female executivepreneurs to use their full energy and thrive in their careers and business. So thank you very much. Welcome, and the stage is yours, Cornelia.
Thank you so much, Indira, for this really kind introduction, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And I don't know about you, but for me, my energy is my most important currency, because I'm trading everything I'm having, you know, I'm doing, I'm thinking, I'm feeling. We spoke a lot about emotions. Every second, I'm trading my energy against something what I'm feeling, doing, or experiencing. And so, as Indira already mentioned, is that energy is really kind of my life. It's and I would like to invite you into my world of energy. And my fascination about energy started already when I was quite young, when I was about 4 years old. And so I was always so impressed, you know, when my mom or somebody, you know, plugged something in like a mixer or vacuum cleaner, and then all of a sudden all these things started working. And so I was always wondering, you know, what's this power behind? And so one afternoon when I was playing outside, I found something very interesting, and I wanted to explore. And that what I found was this. So what I did, I thought, now I have something to check out what's in this plug and where this energy and power is coming from. So I sneaked into my room and then did something what I'm not recommending anybody, and not my own kids as well, but I put this long nail I found into the plug. And the next thing I could remember, and I'm very glad I could remember, this is that luckily the security system really worked. So, but I got really kind of hit by this current and thrown through the room. And when I came back to me, then I saw my mother bending over me and really worried. And so she wanted to know what happened, and we figured it out. But this one moment really changed my life, because I wanted to know how this power is coming into the socket. And that's why I studied electrical engineering. And trust me, now I know how it's getting there. And so I really studied it and I wanted to figure it out. But as you probably assume, the energy industry is very male driven. It's a male industry. And it was very difficult to survive. And we spoke about it, or we heard about it before. It's sometimes very difficult to survive in such an environment. And so I kind of really tried to prove to be, you know, perfect in my managing position, as in perfect as a mom, as my for my husband, you know, live perfectly in my community, support everybody. And then I realized that I forgot one important part of this equation, and that was me. It was myself and my energy. And my energy drained. And I figured out, as an engineer, I need to change something. So that's what I did some research, and that's when I discovered the quantum field. Meaning, I know it sounds very academic, but in a way it means that in a nutshell, everything is just energy. And this really kind of shifted completely my mind, because I understood time is limited to 24 hours per day, but actually my energy isn't, if I know how to manage it. And so I really started experimenting and working with my energy, and realized it's, you can recharge it, you can protect it, you can, you know, set energetic boundaries, and its life really turned out to be so much easier with lots of energy, because then you're not in survival mode anymore, but you see so many more opportunities, and you even, you know, have the energy to execute all these opportunities. So this was kind of the idea when I thought, okay, if I can manage my own energy and I lead myself with energy, I can also do that with others and can use my energy to lead others. And that was when the concept of energetic leadership was kind of born for myself. And energetic leadership goes so much further than traditional leadership. And I know there are different approaches and concepts. And what I think is the most important part is that you really have a clear vision where you want to go. Because if you know where you want to go, and then you have a huge vision that you want to achieve, this is your main driver. And it generates intrinsically so much energy that people around will feel this. And this passion is kind of your energy driver. And so in a way, you're radiating this energy, and other people feel that. And having all this energy then inspires other people to make, you know, to follow you, or to have more on energy their own and make a difference in the world. So it's kind of contagious. And so I realized that it's so important that people feel your energy. And why does it matter so, especially today? You know, there are a couple of reasons for that. Just look back at the last years, right? They were full of pandemic, crisis, inflation. So there is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of change in the world, and many things that worked so far, I think maybe you already realized yourself, but I realized many things that worked so far, they won't work in the future, because there's constant change. So what I also realize is that there's also some uncertainty and fear with people who are not so used to have this flexibility to this continuous change. And also there is all this artificial intelligence, the digital landscape. So all the working together with home office now. So I realized that I can lead people and my team much better when they can feel my energy, when they know what I'm standing for, my value, and I'm really much more present. And this energy is also kind of a cornerstone and of strength, adaptability, flexibility, resilience, and so you have this clear vision, and for people it's much easier to follow you and your energy, and then you always produce this energy for them to move on as well. So, but how does this work? And in a way, I developed a kind of a certain concept, and this is different than normal leadership tools, which is in a way, the most important part, of course, is your own energy. So this is the cornerstone of the whole concept. And in our busy environment, so I developed some tools regarding energetic stress management, because stress is all around. It's very difficult to escape. And with energetic stress management, you can kind of start talking to your body, and you can reduce immediately your stress, right? And then long term, you can even remove all these stress factors that are causing this stress. So you're much more relaxed and also resilient. Then another big part is energetic communication. You can communicate in a completely different way with energetic communication, with using your energy for communication, because then you have a much deeper conversation, and this results in a completely different way of how your relationships develop, because people can feel that you're authentic, that it's true what you're saying, yeah, and you have a different impact. And of course, you can also use your energy to make really powerful and sustainable decisions. We are taking about 10,000 decisions per day. It costs you a lot of energy. If you have a powerful tool to really make the right decision, which are not short-term decisions, but really in the long-term sustainable decisions for you and your journey, it's so much easier, and you use so much less energy. And of course, I think it's also, we spoke about emotions a lot, but I think one important skill women are having, and this is your intuition. And if you use it much more, or your gut's feeling, you will get different results. And I think in the future, this will be more and more important. And last but not least, as we are all, many of us in the corporate world, or in a very male-dominated world, I think we kind of are more and more in this male energy. So I developed a concept in which you can kind of consciously switch between your female energy, which you need when you're creative, you're writing concepts, or your male energy, when you really need to things get done. And you can choose when you want to be in which energy, and it makes life so much easier. So what can you do to implement this energetic leadership in your life? And of course, it always starts with you, right? And I have brought a little exercise for you. You can try out. I do it every morning, and I think it's very powerful. And the way, in a way, is when your alarm goes off, you just close for another 3 minutes. You stay in bed and close your eyes, and then you can just imagine that you inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. You take a deep inhale in your belly and exhale through your mouth. And what you do at the same time, when you inhale, you imagine that this bright, very powerful energy is coming into your nose, in your head, and spreads all over your body and kind of energize every cell in your body. And when you exhale, you just let go everything you don't need anymore. All thoughts, all emotions, whatever is you're worried about, you just let it go. And if you do that for 3 minutes, you will kind of have a lot of energy, and you will jump out of energy because you're ready for the day. And people around you will feel that. They will react on it, and it makes your life so much easier, and also the one for people around you. And this is not only for, you can, you will see a difference not only in your business life or professional life, but also in your private life, because you can't separate it. Your energy is you, right? And it's the same energy for your personal life and also for your business life. And I think this is the authenticity we really need to feel, and people need to feel. So in order to wrap it up, I figured out that in this fast-paced world, with this where constant change is the norm, we need a different concept to, make a difference in the world. And all women that are here, they definitely want to make a difference in the world. And with all these obligations, you need to take care of your most precious asset, and this is your energy, because you need it for yourself, for your family, and also for your business. And I figured out this energetic leadership for me is kind of the concept I can really easily integrate into my daily life. And I experience, and also my clients, when you have more energy, life is perceived as so much easier. And so I can only recommend to, focus more on your energy, use it to lead, and be really the role model that the people around you want you to be. And thank you very much for having the opportunity speaking here, and I enjoyed it a lot, and sending you all lots of energy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cornelia. Yeah, we need those energies coming our way. Thank you so much. I like the fact that you mentioned about our precious asset. It's our energy that we have to really protect them. Valuable insight. And so thank you. We're moving on. We'd like to ask if Dr. Governor Sufa is available now, if she can speak and unmute herself, please.
Well, waiting for Governor Supa, I can just comment on the speech of Dr. Cornelia that humans are, maybe the most powerful fields of energy on Earth, and they are, just navigating their lives in also an ocean of waves of energy, right? Yeah, so the more you are able to navigate your energy from within, the more you are able to find your way outside in the world.
Well, thank you so much for wrapping it up, Dr. Haller. And I think, just because there was a lot, Natalie made such an extraordinary presentation before about emotions. And if you think about it, every emotion is a frequency. And if, have low, if we spoke about sadness or anger, these kind of have low vibrating frequencies, and so then you are in a low mood. But if you're full of joy and energy and love, then your body is different, and you're vibrating on a different frequency and have more energy. So it's really connected.
Yeah, and one more tip. I remember I read or I heard from a scientist who was specialized in genetics, epigenetics, and his theory that we usually give our energy to ourselves, and our cells react not only to the world but to the energy we have inside ourselves. Bruce Lipton, I think the name of the scientist. Yeah.
Yeah, that's epigenetics, and I can fully support it. Yeah, or everything what we're thinking this has a huge impact on ourselves, and not only the environment, but ourselves. We have it in our
Back
hands.
to you, Maria. I'm sorry for the interruption. Back to you.
No worries. We will have Governor Sufa. I think she is available now. And I think we lost her just now. I saw her earlier.
Stories, because you know we are podcasting from different parts of the world, and yeah, we are, as Dr. Cornelia mentioned, we are also controlled by fields of energy, but this time it's man-made. So it's okay. So shall we move ahead?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So before later on we will come back to Governor Sufa, but right now, Simon, are you ready for us?
I am, if you are.
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Simone Johnson Smith. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm honored to introduce Simone Smith as one of our speakers today. Simone is a life coach, speaker, author, and founder of the Dream Academy. She also hosts a renowned podcast, The Immigrant Experience in America, and where she amplifies and humanizes the experiences of immigrants living in the United States. She is an immigrant herself and a former US diplomat. She noticed a significant gap surrounding the positive contributions of immigrants in American life. So she studied the issue of immigration or migration in her undergraduate and master's programs and has worked intimately with the issue for close to 20 years. She identified the need for a roadmap of tools to help immigrants decode unspoken rules. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Simone Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you see? Is everything live?
Recording in progress.
Yes, my dear, we can hear you and we can see you. Go ahead.
Great, great, great. Thank you. So greetings, everyone, and welcome. My name is Simone W. Johnson Smith, as was mentioned before, and I'll be spending the next 15 minutes talking with you about finding belonging, the immigrant experience, a concept about fully embracing coming home to yourself as an immigrant and igniting the use of your superpower, adapting to thrive. Before I get started, I'd like to extend thanks to the London Intercultural Center and the Empower 2024 conference team, my family and friends, and to you for joining us today. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit about me. I'm originally from Jamaica and legally migrated to the US about 2 decades ago. I have studied the issue of migration in my undergraduate and master's programs and worked intimately with the issue for close to about 20 years now. Today, I am a career federal employee with experience working domestically and as a former US diplomat. I am not speaking in an official capacity today, but rather drawing inspirations from my personal experiences as a wife, mom, and podcast host. After years of research, my personal quest, and doing over 137 podcast episodes as the host of the Immigrant Experience in America, which was nominated as one of the top 20 culture podcasts with listeners in over 50 countries. My main message to you today is that the ability to integrate a collectivist and an individualistic cultural dynamic is a superpower. It is also an often painful and evolutionary process that takes a lot of self-exploration and coaching. That is a lot of learning and unlearning. Next slide, please. To lay the foundation for this topic,
Simone?
I want to talk about three things.
Hi, sorry, we cannot see your slide.
Oh, you're not seeing?
Yeah.
Excuse me, just a second. Zoom, please. We need to share. Can you please go to Zoom and share? Share screen, share screen. Share screen. Oh. Can you see
There
now?
you go. Yes, we can see them now,
Okay.
not in the viewing mode though. It's on the slide mode. So if you want to do it in the viewing mode. So you can click on the upper left side of your screen. There's like what you call that, the screen there. So we can see the full screen. We cannot see the full screen of your slides.
My apologies. I am not sure. Are you seeing any of the slides at all?
I'm seeing your slide, the About Me slide, but we're not seeing the full view of the slide. We're seeing like the slides on the left side, but that's okay. If it's not working as what we wanted to, yeah, click on the slideshow. Try the slideshow.
Is that better?
So if you click on the display settings up, because we're still seeing your screen, two screens right now. Okay. So try again, please,
I will
slideshow.
just continue. I will just
Yeah,
continue.
you can. Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, we can see your slides anyway, but yeah, it's just not the full slideshow. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. So my main message is today that in integrating a collectivist and individualistic culture is a superpower, right? And it's often an evolutionary process that takes a lot of self-exploration and coaching, a lot of learning and unlearning. Next slide, please. So to lay the foundation, I'd like to talk about three different things. First, how culture shakes the core of our identity. And secondly, the effects of the strain immigrants feel once we experience the clash between the collectivist and an individualistic culture. And lastly, how to balance assimilation, accommodation, and authenticity to finding belonging. Next slide, please. Let's start at the beginning. Immigration and the culture shock that ensues. According to the United Nations, as of 2020, there were approximately 281 million international migrants worldwide. This figure already surpasses some projections for 2050. Since 1970, the number of people living in a country other than where they were actually born has actually tripled. Yes, tripled. For today, however, let's focus on immigration to the Western world. Immigrants are not stats and figures in a report. If you've ever emigrated, you know that feeling to the inside of not quite fitting in. Are you still searching for home and that deep sense of belonging you once felt in your birth country? So you've studied your adopted country, you take cues from other immigrants and native-born people of how to navigate or assimilate, but you still feel like a foreigner, alien even in this new world. These are my sentiments exactly for the past 2 decades, attempting to understand my life in the United States. Constantly striving, but never actually fitting in, or feeling accepted, leaving me with a constant yearning for home. So how do you define home? According to Egyptian author Naguib Mahfouz, home is not where you were born. Home is where all of your attempts to escape cease. For many immigrants, finding home outside of their birth country can be painful, disorienting, and deeply personal. In fact, many find themselves in the in-between, what is known as a third culture, feeling like a foreigner in one of your birth country and your adoption countries. So what is culture? According to Edward T. Hall, culture hides more than it reveals. And strangely enough, it hides it from its participants. Culture is learned. Culture teaches us how to think, conditions us how to feel, and instructs us how to act, especially how to interact with others. In other words, how to communicate. Australian anthropologist Roger Keesing argues that culture provides people with an implicit theory about how to behave and how to interpret the behaviors of others. So what shapes culture? Collectivism and individualism are key components in shaping culture. As recently as the end of the 20th century, most of the world, about 70%, was actually considered collectivist. Collectivist cultures tend to be known for traits such as group harmony and unity, family and community focus. For example, like I experienced growing up, is where there are so many people involved in parenting a child that the lines of who is the actual parent can be blurry. You probably might have experienced this. Modesty and humility are also traits as well. On the other hand, individualistic cultures have traits such as personal autonomy and independence. You may notice that if you're in a Western country. The nuclear family is the emphasis, and self-promotion is a very big deal. It's important to note that no culture is purely collectivist or individualistic, and elements of both orientations can be present to varying degrees in any society. Additionally, cultural orientations may evolve and change over time due to globalization, migration, and other societal influences. Most of us are from collectivist cultures, and there is tremendous value in this. Most developing countries tend to be collectivists, as there is so much value in sharing limited resources and cooperating with people in your community. So while there are many valuable traits of collectivist cultures, there can be some misused and abused aspects. It is essential that immigrants remain true to their roots as a foundation to a healthy adjustment in an adopted country. Adopted countries can be the place where immigrants come to forget who they are. Have you forgotten who you are? So remember, when you leave your home, do not forget who you are. Next slide, please. Let's now talk about something to which many of us can easily relate. According to the Oxford Dictionary, culture shock is defined as the feeling of disorientation experienced by someone who is suddenly subjected to an unfamiliar culture, way of life, or a set of attitudes. Culture shock usually happens at the intersection of collectivist and individualistic values clashing. For many of us, coming from a collectivist culture is an important part of our identity. So let's look at why culture shock impacts immigrants so profoundly. Researchers Gullahorn and Gullahorn introduced the W-curve model in 1963 to explain the effects of adaptation on immigrants and university students. And as you see here, next slide, please. One back. As you see here, the W curve represents the fluctuation of emotions to travelers, and in our case, migrants when adapting to a new culture. The experience of culture shock can range from mildly annoying to profoundly disturbing. It can be very pronounced in international students, immigrants, and people working away from home in international settings. For example, my experience with culture shock was so pronounced because I am an immigrant. I studied internationally and later worked internationally for the US government in Mexico, Sierra Leone, Cuba, and Ghana. Next slide, please. So the key to overcoming culture shock is to first recognize that you're having difficulty adjusting to your new country. Then try to learn as much as you can about your host country. Be curious about the people, things, and places around you. Ask questions about the culture that you're in and share yours too. Learn to manage ambiguity. You will not know everything, of course. The learning curve may not level off for some time. Be mindful of ethnocentric tendencies and suspend ethnocentric evaluation. And by that, I mean comparing your home culture with the new culture. Making comments like, this is not how we do things back home, or we do things better back home, may not help you transition and get to the healthy balance that you're seeking. Next slide, please. So now that we understand the internal conflict that occurs, let's explore how we typically deal with this as immigrants. So how do we make sense of the disorientation, the culture shock we experience during the highs and lows of cultural adjustment to find belonging as immigrants in an adopted country? How do we balance the cultural expectation of being the fortunate few who live in the lands that flow with milk and honey and supporting communities back home and our personal aspirations? How do we merge the sense of duty and responsibility that so many of us carry with the demands of the capitalistic culture and our very own self-care? Unfortunately, many of us become machine-like entities going from one task to the next, unable to be with the simple things of life like nature, family, to embrace quietness and stillness. Have you lost your connection with being, that being nature that you knew so well in your former collectivist culture? Have you become a human doing? After 2 decades of living and working in the US, I found that I was simply unable to slow down or stop the hyper-achievement mentality. I would go from one activity to the next, seeking gratification. But those fleeting periods only lasted for a while, and then I was off to the next task or goal. I became a human doing. Look, I'm writing a book. This led to several episodes of burnout. How did I lose myself? I pondered, collapsing from exhaustion. As first generation and children of immigrants, this cycle can be harmful and must be addressed for a healthy balance of doing and being to set in. So how do we slow down and balance to doing with the being? How do we balance the cultural pressures to give back to our communities back home and our personal aspirations? At last, you're in a place where you can seek self-actualization, as Maslow's hierarchy puts it. The first step is recognizing that there is a clash going on and that it is impacting you. And secondly, you will need a community of immigrants or others having similar struggles to help you decode this experience. And lastly, if you do not have a community, please seek out the help of a professional such as a therapist or a coach to help you with the proper tools. The clash between these two cultures can be debilitating and at worst very traumatic. This is why I created a strength-based interculturally competent program to provide the support immigrants need to come home to themselves, to learn how to show up as their authentic immigrant selves and manage the cultural clashes between both worlds. So the key is to come home to yourself, to embrace your authentic immigrant self, the changes and the hybrid of both cultures that you are becoming. My own journey has shown that it can be a painful yet necessary evolutionary process. If you are struggling with the being and a human doing and coming home to yourself, our coaching program is here to facilitate that grace and support that you need to become a better, healthier version of yourself. Next slide, please. So now that we understand the danger of becoming a human doing and the cultural clash between the collectivist and the individualistic culture, let's talk about ways we can balance assimilation, accommodation, and authenticity to get to a healthy integration and or balance of both cultures, so we can finally embrace coming home to ourselves. It is said that the Western world is where immigrants come to forget who they are. Have you lost that sense of you and forgotten who you are? As immigrants, we are told that we must assimilate, but often the target of assimilation is not clearly defined, or it's shape-shifting. Culture shock leaves us disoriented. How do we balance all these three? Assimilation, accommodation, showing up as our authentic selves to get to a healthy integration of collectivist and individualistic, the cultural dynamic. Lately, there is much to do about this idea of code switching, which basically means adjusting yourself to an audience or an environment, wherever you find yourself. So while this is necessary for some groups, for immigrants, it might not prove pragmatic. So I'm recommending that you do a contextual code switching, where you tailor your authentic self to an audience or an environment. For example, a different version of you with your family, friends, or coworkers, and so on. So to do this, though, you must keenly know yourself. This means wholly embracing who you are as an immigrant, your heritage, your accent, your skin complexion, your curves or no curves, all of it. The value you bring coupled with knowledge of the culture and norms of your country. Please do not give up your power of biases and labels. Stand firmly in who you are and influence from there. This is very essential for building rapport and becoming a bridge person. Not everyone will understand the nuances of your former culture, and you certainly won't get everything in your new culture right away. But yet, belonging is a fundamental need, a yearning to be connected and accepted and valued. Okay, switch to the next slide. So here are my 3 key takeaways.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have 1 minute to wrap up, please. Thank you.
So here are my key 3 takeaways. Do not forget who you are. With support, you can learn to show up as your authentic immigrant self. And number 2, you can balance and integrate the being and the doing. Watch out for that mentality where you're praised for not taking a vacation or taking a sick day. And lastly, embrace who you are becoming. Embrace your superpower. Become a bridge person. No superpower comes without either great responsibility or great struggle. The key is in making sure that you do not lose your core identity as you evolve into being greater than the parts of your cultural sum. So thank you so much for joining me today in discussing coming home to yourself, finding belonging as an immigrant, and showing up as your authentic self. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. In fact, your presentation resonates very well with what we are providing of cultural coaching at London Intercultural Center. We are trying to bridge the gap, the cultural gap that exists between newcomers to London. But I can tell you, Simon, that from my personal experience, home is the place where you can build memories, build relations, and build a career. This is exactly what happened with me. I've been in the UAE for 30 years, and I feel that this is my second home. Now, it all starts wherever you go is first step to accept the culture of the hosting country. And at the same time, maintain your cultural roots. So in this way, you are able to know exactly your identity, who you are, through, of course, your norms, your culture, your food maybe, or your beliefs. And then you can move ahead to interact in a healthy way with the hosting country, even with its culture. You need to have this kind of acceptance of other cultures. So if we move into this perception of moving or maybe relocating to other places, I think we can be really adaptable, we can cope and we can have more than one home. So again, home is the place you can build memories, build relations, and build a career. And your home root is inside your heart. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Simone, for that very insightful presentation. I can also relate as an immigrant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hala, for your thoughts there. Now, we'd like to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker, I'm honored to introduce her because I don't think we have Natalie around, so I'll just cover for Natalie. So our next speaker is Nikki Williams. She is the Director of Charter Schools at Talim. Very much talented individual, and just looking at her profile, she is adept in project management, school operational leadership, coaching, organizational leadership, mindfulness. She also has enhanced her leadership skills with a master's degree focused in educational leadership and management from the University of Bath. So I'll be sharing with you her message. She has sent us her message through a video.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world watching this. I am delighted to be here to celebrate women in leadership on International Women's Day, and hopefully inspire some women who are thinking about taking the next step into leadership to take that leap. My name is Nikki Williams, and I'm the director for a group of schools in Abu Dhabi with the Talim School Group. I have the distinct privilege of working with a fantastic team of staff that come from all over the world who help support the education of approximately 16,000 students. The journey to where I am today has been sullied with challenges and pitfalls, and they've taught me many things and helped me develop as a resilient leader. As my focus for this talk is empowering leaders through mentorship, I'd like to share the mentoring part by sharing top tips, 5 of them, for women leaders that I hope empowers you and supports you on your leadership journey. I've mentored many leaders in my time, so please do reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're looking for some further guidance or support. Tip number 1, we need to be the cheerleaders of other women. I grew up in a household with a single father who was quite openly misogynistic, and to his dismay was gifted with 3 daughters before he had his blessed son. My sister was a quiet, obedient, well-mannered girl, and then there was me, rebellious, opinionated, and really everything my father didn't like in the female of the species. Growing up with a single father who was quite unemotional, unless it was angry, made me typically default to male tendencies when it came to sharing emotions. So when I worked as a principal in an all-girls school, I learned a lot about women and emotions and empathy and compassion that has really helped me to be the leader that I am today. And I am deeply grateful to all those amazing women that I worked with that helped me learn all those skills. One thing I noticed quite frequently was that some women in my organization used to try to get ahead or stand out by throwing a colleague under the bus. My opening address to my staff would always include, we're a team. Teamwork is important to me and to the culture of this school. Never come in my office to dim the light of someone else to make your light shine brighter. That is also my advice to you. Celebrate other women's achievements, support their goals and dreams, and be an advocate for women in leadership. Tip number 2, let's start with integrity and fairness. This is something I hold really close to my heart. If you've ever worked in a toxic environment with a leader who targets and bullies people, this can be absolutely soul-destroying. It can be so hard on your mental health. To quote Spider-Man's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility, and this is true to any position of leadership. Gaining the loyalty, trust, and respect of your colleagues will come when you ensure fairness and you make decisions with integrity. Sometimes women in leadership can allow their judgments to be affected by how they feel about a team member. Some staff members are going to drive you crazy. They're going to be obstructive. They're going to challenge you. It'll happen in any organization. It's absolutely appropriate to discuss those things with that colleague, and then you put it aside. You let it go, and you move on from that incident. You don't allow that one thing to cloud your judgment of that person. Have you treat them differently, give them the silent treatment, and not act in a professional manner as a result of one incident or a couple of incidents. Hold yourself to a higher standard of emotional control. Tip number 3, can-do attitude. That's not my job used to be my big pet peeve saying when I was opening a new school. It wasn't technically my job to move furniture or run around with resources, supplying classes with what they needed when they needed it, but it was my school, we were a team, and I was going to do what I needed to do to help us be successful. When I started my career at the bottom of the ladder, I was the first one in, and I was the last one out every day because I was so passionate about what we were doing, and it was really something that I cared about, and I did it for the greater good of the school. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the package, it wasn't about the person in the classroom, it was about the children, and it was about what I was passionate about getting done every day. This dedication and work ethic has helped me get to where I am today. Although, of course, work-life balance is absolutely needed and absolutely essential, being supportive of colleagues and being a part of building a team culture and collective responsibility is the best way to create an environment where people enjoy being in work every day. So support your colleagues when they need your help. Be there for them, and they will reciprocate that one day. Tip number 4, leave the victim mentality at the door. Sadly, in life, we are going to face many peaks and troughs, but I assure you that in this sometimes cruel world, there will always be someone who has it worse than you. Don't let life's challenges define who you are as a person or who you are as a leader. When my husband passed away suddenly from a brain hemorrhage when my children were 2, 5, and 12, my life changed in an instant. And I remember watching an episode of Oprah where a woman in a similar position made her children watch sad videos of her husband on repeat, spent hours crying every day. Day after day after day, and I thought to myself, do I really want this tragedy to define who I am and the happiness of my children? I could have sat back and thought, why me? I could have stamped my feet, I could have said this isn't fair, but instead I chose to make this the fire that drove me forward, so I could support my children as a single parent. I pursued higher positions, further studies, and I lived, laughed, and loved life. Even today, I make sure I live life to the fullest. My children have grown up happy as a result of this and the life we have from the hard work that I put in. Tip number 5, be reflective, but be kind to yourself. We are women, we are human, we make mistakes, we fail, and from all of that, we then learn. I couldn't or wouldn't be who I am today without the mistakes I've made along the way. The times I've overreacted, I've taken it too far, I've pushed the boundaries, etc., etc. Everyone does it. And then you make mistakes in your family life. And women, we are so judgmental of ourselves. Am I a good mother? Am I a good worker? Should I do what I was supposed to do today? Did I support my kids the way I was supposed to support them? We can be really judgmental of all of the different balls that we're juggling every day. But be kind to yourself. We are learning all the way through. And I know that when I've overreacted and I've made mistakes, I've been able to sit and face the consequences of that. But then in order to grow, we need to reflect. Recognize we messed up, understand what we could have done differently, and then let it go and move forward. Now, I know if you're anything like me, it's the letting it go part that's the hard part. We play it over in our heads, we judge ourselves, we say horrible things to ourselves in our mind, we second guess ourselves, we berate ourselves, and the pattern continues. In the famous words of Maya Angelou, courage allows the successful woman to fail and learn powerful lessons from that failure, so that in the end, she didn't fail at all. Be kind to yourself and be courageous.
Thank you so much. So that's a very wonderful presentation video, insights from Nikki. Too bad she couldn't join us, but she's able to, give us this video. So we're moving on to our next presenter. Just give me 1 second. I will just end my slide share here. Okay, there you go. All right, so I'm also honored to introduce our next speaker to talk about the loss of success. Our next speaker is Eugenia Jordan. She's an award-winning CMO in telecom industry, a creator of a new market category in telecom, an inventor with 12 patents, a frequent article contributor, a keynote speaker, and an author of a best-selling leadership book for the underrepresented. It's called Unlimited, the 17 Proven Laws for Success in Workplace, Not Designed for You. She is a mom to human and 3 dogs and a wife. So let's welcome Eugenia.
Thank you very much, Maria. If you can let me, so I can share the slide, I'll share my deck. While you're doing that, I want to thank the event organizers. Your team did an amazing job. And all the speakers, this is such an enriching experience, and I'm very grateful for this. I also want to thank Simone, because she's a great example of women supporting women. She's the one that introduced me to the event organizers so I can be a speaker here. So hashtag when women support one another, magic happens.
Totally agree. All right, I think you can share now your screen, Eugenia.
So, laws for success. I've applied them without even knowing what they were throughout my career. Who am I? Yeah, that's little cute girl is me. Probably 48 years ago, that all she wanted is to make this world a better place. That was her why. When she moved from Russia to Canada in 95, and then when she moved here to the United States in 2000, that's all she wanted. She wanted to build a better life for herself, like many immigrants do. She moved to the United States for love, and then she found herself in a very abusive and controlling marriage. So she left that marriage with a 2-year-old and built that amazing career in just the last 17 years, creating new market category, inventing 12 patents, and writing an award-winning leadership book for people like her. So in this presentation, we'll talk about the 3 circles of success. And the reason you is highlighted because that's the only thing you can control. Your thoughts, your triggers, your emotions. You cannot control the system because the system been built for men by men. And the other thing you can control is who you bring into your life. Your mentors, your sponsors, your support circle. the 5 T's that I applied to myself, the system, and my support circle are right here on the screen. And if you were watching this day and tomorrow again, you will hear this over and over again. Courage. Courage is not opposite of fear. Courage is doing what you need to do based on your values. My value is integrity. Despite that fear, moving forward, speaking up for yourself, others, pushing through. That's courage. Confidence. I just told you a story about growing dirt poor in Russia, being an abusive marriage. And the reason I'm able to say it, because I know that where I was, it's not who I am or where I'm going to be 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. I'm confident in my abilities. I'm confident and I know my worth. And no one is going to take it away from me. By sharing those parts of my story, I own my story. I own my narrative. And that's what gives me fuel and confidence. The next one is compassion. The previous speaker was talking about us being so hard on ourselves. My question to all of you, sometimes the way you talk to yourself, would you talk this way to others? Would you belittle them? Would you give them a hard time? Absolutely not, the answer is, right? Then why? Why are you talking like this to yourself? Compassion starts with you. Self-compassion. You made a mistake, so what? It's not a big deal. My first TikTok, I actually misspelled my journey from receptionist in communist Russia to chief marketing officer. I misspelled it, the word marketing. Yeah, I have fingers, right? I need to wear glasses. And people were trying to shame me, man. And I said, okay, so I misspelled marketing. It doesn't take away what I've achieved. And there was one gentleman that said, marketing, because that's how I misspelled it, means enchanted. So you are enchanted, Eugenia. So find people like that gentleman and be compassionate for yourself. The other T is curiosity. Keep asking questions. And the only question that you want to ask, if you're told no, if you're told not now, not for you, keep asking why. And the best question to ask, why not me? If I allowed people tell me that I cannot write a book because English is my second language, or I cannot invent patents because I have a computer science degree and I'm not an engineer, then the world wouldn't have this book, and the industry, my telecom industry, wouldn't have a new market category. Why not me? Why not you? Have clarity on that question. I'm going to pull this. So this is a picture of my son, and it's right behind me in my home office. Put it back. Because he's my why. When I was a single parent, in the first few weeks, we slept on the floor, and my little boy slept next to me in a diaper. He was my why. He was my why to build my career and succeed, because I wanted to provide for him the best life that possible. Clarity, knowing your values and knowing your why. So here, I'm going to give you some practical advice, how you can apply the 5 C's to you, then the system, and your support circle. Courage. You need to have courage to speak about your value, promote your personal brand. You need to have confidence to speak your voice. And I know it's hard. So you might start little, and every day you move by 15%. And by the end of the year, you've already spoken up 365 times. Start with small steps. Know your power. Have compassion. If your power is not understood by others, have compassion to yourself, because the only person that can determine your value is you. No one else. It's up to you to put a price on yourself. It's either 5 cents or $1 million. So put your price as you want it, as you see it. No one else can determine your value. And be curious. And here are some steps. I already showed you that I accepted who I am authentically. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, or if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you will see I talk about all those parts of my life, because me being poor, me being an abusive marriage, doesn't take away from my value. And always I celebrate my accomplishments and my circle. Negotiate your worth always. Let me tell you a little story. The year was 2006 and 7. I was in a very bad abusive marriage, and I was working as a chief of staff, supporting 9 executives. I was not making a lot of money for the amount of work that I did. I managed global administration team. I managed the board. I managed the 9 executives. And then I realized that I was underpaid. So what I did, I printed out all the jobs that I did from salary.com, created the number that I wanted, and walked into my boss's office, and I found out the data. I knew my worth. I knew the work I did. So that was done. That was number 1. I already earned my keep. And number 2, I had the data. So when I found it out and I built my case, 2 days later, I got a 50% 50 raise. What that allowed me is to move out of my previous marital home and build a life where my son and I lived with no abuse. Negotiate your worth. Always, always, always. The system. If you're telling yourself that there's no system, then you're having blinders on. This system exists. So like Dr. Hala was saying, when you move to a different country, or when you start working in a corporate world, or if you're building your business, learn the rules. And always have balance. Because like Simone was saying, you don't want to burn out. Establish those boundaries and don't break them. When I was a single parent, I had those boundaries. I had to leave at 5 o'clock to pick up my little boy. Yes, of course, I got on the laptop at 8 o'clock when he wanted to sleep. But between 5 and 8, it was my time with him. And once you have a platform, like many of this on the call, leaders, it's your responsibility to make it better for people like you. You might be the first one at the table. You might be right now the only one at the table. Don't be the last one. Extend the table, open the doors, invite people like you. Because that's how we can change the face of leadership. and your support circle. I loved the previous video because the lady there was talking about women supporting women. There's a quote by former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. She was an immigrant from Czechoslovakia, and her famous quote is, "There's a special place in hell for women that don't support other women." Don't be that woman. Find your supporters, nurture those relationships, and give back. And this is how you can stay connected with me via LinkedIn. Visit my website, and let's continue this conversation to empowering all of us.
Thank you so much, Eugenia, for sharing your story. It's also a story of resilience, as I can, hear that inspiring story. And so, moving on, we'll have our last speaker before our closing keynote speaker, which I'm really looking forward to hear. I'd like to present a video that was sent to us by our next speaker, and I'm just looking at her. Okay, so our next speaker, her name is Greta Stojanovic. She has sent her video message to us. She's a data scientist, multi-award winning tech entrepreneur that spends her time between the US and Australia. In 2019, she won the Global Techstars Unite to Fight COVID-19 Startup Weekend. And in 2021, she won the People's Choice Award in Telstra's International Hackathon. Greta's passion for human rights, justice, and data has led her to building the Delphi Oracle, an artificial intelligence SaaS product that harnesses the power of the latest groundbreaking AI technology to better understand weather and climate intelligence and predict weather patterns for the purposes of assisting humanity, especially with regard to disaster prediction and mitigation. So let's listen to Greta's message to us. Okay. Hattie, I don't think I have the the power to share the screen. It looks like somebody has changed me to a panelist. I don't have the host capacity. Okay. Hold on. Perfect. Thank you.
In the tapestry of earth woven with threads of myriad hues, I find myself a patchwork soul, a blend of varied clues. Serbian whispers, Bosnian tales, Scottish highlands, Irish gales, and a German note, faint yet clear, compose the symphony that I hear. But beyond these lands, my spirit soars. Australian shores do hold my oars. No single nation claims my heart. No singular culture sets me apart. I belong to none, yet embrace them all, in every folklore, in every call. My wisdom springs from this very space, a love for all, a boundless grace. For I am the child of earth, her secrets mine are to unearth. Africa, my cradle vast, where human bonds were first cast. Mother Nature, my guiding star, in her embrace I travel far. Beyond borders, beyond the creed, in every heart, in every deed. There is a melancholy soft and low, for a clan to call my own I forego. Yet in this solitude I find a unity with all mankind. For we are one beneath the sun, in love and pain, in joy and run. So here I stand, citizen of earth, belonging everywhere, yet nowhere from birth. My wisdom lies in this wide view, a love for the many, not just the few. In every culture, every race, I see a mirror, a familiar face. This is a testament to my creed. In a world of division, unity's seed. I am from Serbia, Bosnia, Scotland, Ireland, and more. But above all, humanity is the core. And so it is I celebrate together with you, not divisions wide, but a common pulse that beats inside.
This is amazing, and this is really the summary of what we have been doing and trying just to spread through London Intercultural Center. Yes, and there finally we are with you, and you know, usually we keep the richest, the most beautiful to the end. So yes, I leave the mic to our dearest host, Maria, to introduce also our senior board member, Indira.
Thank you, Dr. Hala, and it's an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce Indira. Indira Bunik is an internationally recognized and accomplished thought leader with over 3 decades of impactful leadership in governance, diplomacy, law enforcement, corporate world, industry, non-for-profit sector, and academia. She's a multiple member of different boards of directors, fashionable leadership empowerment coach, CEO and founder of Empower You Ignite, Your Leadership Journey, and a book author of Rise Above and Empower Yourself. So let's welcome Ms. Indira Bunik.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you very much, Dr. Hala. I really, truly appreciate your invitation and this great opportunity to speak today at Empower Her 2024. So good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depends where you are sitting in the world. Dear esteemed colleagues, guests, and visionary leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly honored to be today here, and I want to share my story. My feminist journey started a very long time ago when I was in kindergarten. My female teacher told me that girls could not play a football. And guess what? I didn't let her words discourage me. I did play football anyway, refusing to let her expectation limit me. This was one of the earliest challenges I faced in my journey, and it helped me develop resilience and courage to stand up for my beliefs. And until today, this threat remained a critical part of my personal and professional life. Many of us, I guess, had similar experiences, or of course, not playing a football, I mean. We have faced various challenges and setbacks. We have learned to be resilient and to define our path to ignite our personal and professional journey. So let me pose another question. Does anyone know the equity horizon? I don't think someone does, because equity horizon is not a story. Equity horizon is my vision. And before I proceed with this vision, let me take you back at the early beginning, because we need not to forget our history. At this moment in history, we stand at the crossroads of our past and the future aspirations. We are the successor of a legacy shaped by the women who dared to dream of the world that acknowledged their values, amplified their voices, and unleashed their full potential. Feminism is not an outdated issue from the past or confined with chapters of history. It's a vibrant and thriving movement, a tapestry of diverse voices resonating with strength and resilience throughout generations. This movement has changed societies, challenged norms, and paved the way for generations. From the suffragettes who fought for women's right to vote, to the activists advocating for gender equality today, the journey of feminism is a testament to the power of collective action and enduring struggle to equity. And yet, as we stand on the shoulders of this giant, we recognize that our quest is indeed very far from complete. And do you know why it's far from complete? Allow me to pose some questions. Have you ever experienced your ideas being frequently attributed to the male colleagues while your efforts go unnoticed? Have you experienced that your ideas are met with skepticism more than those of men who tend to receive greater expectance or admiration? Have you ever felt like your opinions or contributions are often ignored, overshadowed by the voices of men? Have you experienced the judgment that labels women as a bossy or aggressive, while men are seen as strong and decisive? Have you experienced being labeled as emotional or too sensitive when expressing your thoughts, while male counterparts are praised for their passion or conviction? Have you experienced the frustration of being overlooked for promotions or opportunity due to the gender bias? Have you experienced the need even to downplay your achievements or soften your voice just to be taken seriously? Have you ever been reduced to your physical appearance rather than recognized for your intellect, your skills, your contributions? Have you experienced backlash for changing established norms or questioning the status quo where society dismisses or silences your voice as a critical, radical, or unconventional? Have you ever experienced exclusion or marginalization in male domain spaces where your expertise and leadership are overlooked or undervalued? Or let me ask you, have you ever wondered why women still globally earn only 68.4% of their male counterparts, despite making up nearly half of the workplace? Have you ever wondered why, despite their qualifications and experience, women occupy only 27.1% of management positions worldwide? Have you ever wondered why women were disproportionately affected by unemployment and existing inequalities impaired during the COVID-19 pandemic? Have you ever considered women's critical role in addressing global challenges, such as a climate challenge or poverty? Have you ever wondered about the persistent underrepresentation of women in board positions and the barriers that hinder their achievements? Have you ever wondered why, despite some progress, the reality that only 19.7% of the board members worldwide were women in 2021? Have you ever wondered why, despite living longer than men, women spend 25% more than their lives in poor health, and why health burdens have a heavy impact on women's life with ripple effect on the broader society? 2 weeks ago, I attended an international conference where the speaker, a very prominent female figure, was asked about her most significant challenge in business. And guess what? She replied, "I've always had to work twice as hard as my male counterparts to get where I'm today." These stereotypes go beyond being merely bothersome. They inflict harm. They restrict our opportunities, stifle our creativities, and impede us from realizing our potential. These challenges are indicative of systemic obstacles and biases women face. They highlight the urgency of our mission to dismantle these barriers, champion inclusivity, and pave the way for a future where everyone can thrive. So, how can we change this systemic obstacle? Only if we approach them holistic and systemic. Only if we inspire and empower others, ladies in kindergarten, in our environments where we live, work, learn, or raise our kids. And how we can do that? Let's raise your hand, voice, or speak up. And yes, my answer is Equity Horizon. Equity Horizon is deeply rooted in the history of feminism as well, a movement that has tirelessly worked to challenge and change the status quo. Equity Horizon involves in response to all barriers in our environments, organizations, and families. Equity Horizon demands to push any barrier and boundaries we face. Equity Horizon confronts biases and creates space where diverse voices are heard, understood, valued, and amplified. In Equity Horizon, diversity is celebrated, and everyone, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, cultural or regional background, religion, or sexual orientation, is included and can fulfill their full potential. Equity Horizon expands beyond the realm of women and gender alone. It encompasses a broader ethical principles of equity, recognizing that true progress can be achieved only with embracing diversity and inclusion in all its forms. As we approach an era characterized by exceptional technological achievements and generative AI, we face limitless possibilities and profound challenges. Recognizing the strength of Equity Horizon is not only a moral imperative, but a necessity. Genuine progress can only be achieved through a holistic approach, and it is a call for a commitment to our limitless potential and greatness that comes from diverse perspectives, which is our strength. And why must we envision the Equity Horizon? Our ability to envision the Equity Horizon is the first step toward creating it. Equity Horizon is not just a picture of what could be. It is an appeal and commitment to our better selves, a call to become better and to become something more. And how do we start the Equity Horizon journey? By taking immediate action now. Let's start our commitment to empowerment in our mission to Equity Horizon. Let's commit to spreading the powerful message of Equity Horizon, inspiring, empowering, and being accountable. Let's foster an Equity Horizon culture where everyone's contributions are recognized and collaborative efforts are aimed at collective success. Committing to Equity Horizon, we don't envision getting something. We aspire to become better, a community of influential leaders who empower her and encourage empower, and inspire all others to join us on this journey to a more inclusive and a better world. Empowerment, encouragement, and equity are not only about me, not only about her, and not only about us here today, and not only about women. It is about us, humans. By committing to Equity Horizon, we acknowledge that empowering ourselves creates a path toward a better and inclusive world for all. To achieve her empowerment, we need the whole society. We must inspire, empower, and help others to join us for a better, inclusive, sustainable equity horizon. And so, have you ever wondered why envisioning the equity horizon matters? It matters because it challenges us to look beyond ourselves and present limitations and envision the future where every person is empowered to reach their full potentials. It matters because in empowering us all, we don't just change the world for her. We elevate it to the better place where we can all flourish in our inclusive, diverse, and enriched global community. It matters because with Equity Horizon, we can transform our world into a beacon of hope, where equity is the foundation of our collective progress and everyone has the chance to thrive. Without it, we are merely passengers of our fate. With it, we become captains of our destiny. As the book author, I understand the struggles and triumphs of the growth and path, and I invite you to rise above and empower yourself. I invite you to listen or nod in agreement and engage in the vision actively. I invite you to envision and believe we can create the world of Equity Horizon. And when we believe and carry it in our hearts and minds, we have a destination and the path forward a brighter future for all with the promise of Equity Horizon. I invite you to say yes. Say yes, I can. Say yes, we can empower her, empowering us. Honored guests, esteemed colleagues, visionary leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Day one has been a whirlwind of inspiration, but our journey of empowerment is far from over. Join us again tomorrow for a day two, bringing with even more powerful insights and opportunities to fuel your fire. See you all bright and early tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Wow, powerful closing, Indira. Thank you so much. Dr. Hala, are you there?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Indira. It was amazing, and it was a wrap-up of the whole conference for today. Thank you so much. Maria, thank you so much. And also, I extend my gratitude and appreciation for all those wonderful speakers who joined us today. And also for Greta, who was, so generous in recording her poetry and sharing it with us. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to listen to our other amazing global speakers tomorrow, inshallah.
See you all tomorrow. Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.